bad.
What is up? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. I'm your host, Ricardo Franz, also known as Ricky Franz, and first episode of 2021. Thank God 2020 is behind us. It was a great year for podcasting and the Ripple Effect Podcast and the new podcast that I do, the Union of The Unwanted, with Midnight Mike, Charlie Robinson, and Sam Tripoli. But outside of that, everything else sucked about it. So, but I did get to connect with a lot of cool people, and the shows keep growing. And I keep having the privilege of having these amazing conversations with amazing guests, like today, researcher, thinker, YouTuber. Well, I don't know how much longer on YouTube because he's been getting strikes, but he's on BitChute, Odysee LBRY, MemoryHold. He was on the last Union of The Unwanted show we did on supernatural stuff and UFOs, ETs, all that type of stuff. Awesome conversation. He's also been on Tinfoil Hat podcast. Check that out. It was another great interview and just super interesting, fun guy to talk to. We go down some real crazy rabbit holes where initially, we talk a lot about music and some of our own personal experiences in regards to getting into alternative media, but then we go deep into the whole Pedogate thing, Pizzagate, Q, all that type of stuff. So it really fascinating conversation and fun conversation to connect with somebody who is able to just do the research on these really hard topics and put in the work to discuss it and expose it. And, like I told MemoryHold, I mean, one of the things that are the hardest are doing these shows on those type of topics because, they have to be done. We have to discuss it because it exists. It's in the world. Somebody needs to let the world know this stuff is happening and we need to put an end to it. But obviously you go down some really dark rabbit holes. So I can't thank him enough for doing the research he does. And some other news. So this is the first episode of 2021. I'm going to start doing Patreon podcasts. So if you're a Patreon supporter, in the past, what I've done is I let you know in advance who I'm booking, who's going to be on the show, all that type of stuff. I'll continue to do that. But I'm also going to do Patreon exclusive podcasts where you'll get the Zoom link. If you're on Patreon and you support the show financially, you'll get the Zoom link on my Patreon page, and you'll be able to join the show. And I'll do a episode with just the supporters, the fans, the people who support the show on Patreon. You'll jump in. You can jump in for as little or as long as you want. You can jump in and talk and chat, or you can jump in and just hang out and just listen to what's going on. And then I'll release that show as a full episode. So you'll be able to be on the RSS feed and be on the Ripple Effect podcast just by being a Patreon supporter. Should be fun. I'll be doing the first one very soon. If you're on Patreon, you would know when it is. It's actually going to be tonight, the 5th, Tuesday, January the 5th, 2021. But join the Patreon page and you can make sure you're on the next one. And if everything goes well, then I'll maybe do more and more of these. So that's one thing I want to tell you guys about. Of course, the Union of The Unwanted is its own show, has its own RSS feed, has its own YouTube channel, and all that stuff. It's also on Float and Odysee, similar to the Ripple Effect podcast, which is now also on Float and Odysee and all that stuff. So you can get both shows basically anywhere, BitChute, Float, Odysee, all those places. Look up the Ripple Effect podcast and you'll find it. I'm still on Twitter, Instagram, PARLER, YouTube, all those spots. Follow me there. Facebook, I have a Ripple Effect Podcast Facebook page. I'll put all those things in the show description on our YouTube channel, and you'll also find it in the show description on Odysee and BitChute and Float. I am pushing this value for value thing, so if you get value out of these conversations, if you find some value in this podcast, really consider supporting the show. Now I've given you one more reason to do it. And also I have a merch store Ripple Effect Podcast merch.com, where you can find hoodies, mugs, t-shirts, all that type of stuff. I also have a PayPal account if you want to tip the show. I think that's it. Enjoyed the conversation. It was a super fun conversation. In December, I never really felt like myself. I felt like I was having some gut issues, some anxiety of the end of the year, of like the holidays, and then like, okay, how much do I buy for the kids and the family? Money's a little tight because of the crappy year we had in my full-time job and also my wife's full-time job. So I think all that anxiety and then like a little bit of lack of sleep and I just felt like cognitively I wasn't there. I really didn't feel like myself. My energy was low. Cognitively, I didn't feel like I was sparking all cylinders. I just never felt like myself. Or maybe I had a little bit of a cold that was kind of lingering around. Sometimes you have those colds that it's like they never really quite hit you hard, but they just linger around for long periods of time. So it was affecting my ability to kind of just feel normal and then my energy levels and all that stuff. So my point is now I feel much better. I think you could hear it in the conversation. We had a amazing conversation, and I couldn't ask for a better guest for my first guest in 2021. MemoryHold and I think, had a really fascinating conversation you guys are all gonna enjoy. And now I believe that's it, finally. So enjoy the conversation, and I will talk to you guys on the next one. Hope all is well. Peace.
How you doing?
Good. Thanks for being with me, man. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for the invite, man. It's a super fun show last time. I couldn't toss up another opportunity like this to hang out, man.
that was I love doing those Union of the Unwanted shows. They're
Oh gosh, it's so fun.
Have you watched any of the previous ones?
Yeah. I probably got into it even later than I should have, because for some reason I hadn't heard of it. But then I said, what the heck is going on here? I should have heard about this a long time ago. And then I listened to a few episodes after that. I forget the last one I listened to. I feel, you know what? There's so many guests that I can't even remember who was on there. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was funny how it all happened too. It was kind of like accidental. I love doing swapcasts, like just getting people I've met throughout the years in the community and just kind of chit-chatting and hanging out. And I think that's one of the reasons people love podcasts, is because a lot of times you get to have, well, even if you're not a part of it, you get to feel like you're a part of the conversations you want to be a part of. So, I get that opportunity to network with people, and I'm like, hey, this is like being able to pick my friends and actually have people in my little group, my community, that are interested in the same things I'm interested in. So we have these swapcasts, and it just happened that it was me, Charlie, and Mike, and then I gave Sam the invite. It's funny how it all worked out, because Charlie, I didn't know, but Charlie was a fan of Mike's show, the OBDM show.
Oh, no way.
He heard me on that show, and he emails me, and he's like, hey, dude, I love that show. I listen to that show all the time. And I'm like, how about we all get together and chit chat and hang out? So then we all got together, and then I'm like, hey, let me invite some people and see if they're around, if they want to also join in the conversation. So I invited Sam, then Sam joined in, and then next thing you know, we're all kind of talking about censorship, and Mike comes up with this title, the Union of the Unwanted, and
Perfect name.
Yeah, he was referring to big tech, how like everybody in the alternative media community kind of felt like we're unwanted by big tech. Then we're like, yo, we got to do something with that. And I'm like, what a great, clever name. So we, instead of just forgetting about it, we actually put together, it was our big first like official Union of Unwanted show, where we had like Ben Swan and Luke from We Are Change and a bunch of people on to talk about censorship. And then I'm like, remember after the show, I'm like, dude, this is awesome. Like, how do we continue doing this? I'm like, so I started throwing out text messages. I'm like, yeah, let's do this every, pick a day, pick a time, and we'll do this, every other week or whatnot. And then it just kind of it blew up from there. And we've only been doing it for like 5 months. But I also think these type of shows are necessary too. Like even the type of shows you do also, with like where you're just kind of talking about your own personal perspectives and opinions on stuff. There's something more intimate about that I think sometimes is lost in a big Zoom conference call, right, where it'll be hard for everybody to kind of put in their 2 cents. I think the last one, if people haven't listened to it, check out the last episode of the Union of the Unwanted. MemoryHold was on there, and it was an awesome discussion about supernatural stuff, ETs, UFOs, all that type of stuff. And it was a good like group. It wasn't too large. It was small enough where everybody had time to talk. So I think that, but the hard part is, just like anybody putting together a personal function with friends, it's hard to get people to confirm 100% if they're making it or not. So I'm always
Right.
like, I do a lot of the booking, so like I'm always freaking out because I'm always like, well, sometimes Sam or Charlie or Mike will be like, hey, who you got coming? I'm like, oh, I got these people, but I'm like, I'm inviting a couple more people because I don't know, like last second, sometimes people don't make it,
Yeah.
and so and then sometimes that's why we get those giant groups because I'm like, you know what, let me just throw the invite out.
I was just about to ask, has there ever been a moment where like there was three that were like, I'll let you know, but then they all say, yeah, I can do it. And it's just a humongous, yeah, okay. That's awesome.
A few times, yeah, where it was just a giant, or at the last second, there'll be people who've been on the show who contact me and they'll be like, hey, are you doing one tonight? I'd love to join in. And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not join in? And then,
Perfect.
like everybody shows up
Yeah.
but it's fun because it's been a lot of wild cards. Like, I remember so Dr. Scott Jensen was on a episode, I think prior to yours. And, but he was supposed to be on the show before that. And last second he had to cancel. So, and then I'm like scattering around, like thinking like who's going to be like the new big guest I want to have on. And then I'm like, hey, you know what? I haven't talked to Roger Stone in a long time. Let me see if I could still get a hold of him. And last second, he happened to come on, and I got Roger Stone on, and everybody's
That's
like,
crazy.
holy fuck, I didn't know you were going to have Roger Stone on. I'm like, I kind of didn't either. I'm like, it was kind of a last second thing. Happened to have some luck with getting a hold of him.
Yeah, that's crazy they got him on here. What was he like?
So I've had him on some years ago.
Okay.
The nice thing is, like, through the Ripple Effect podcast and that project, which I started in 2013, I've kind of gotten to know people, and I've gotten, I'm just one of those people, like, I try to get along with everybody. And I've had so many people from different backgrounds, and I've had Jesse Ventura on, I've had Robbie Martin and Lee Camp, people from the left, but then I've had people like Jack Abramoff on, and so tons of different guests, and so I always try not to burn any bridges and be nice to everybody,
Of course.
because I'm honestly just a curious person. I mean, the reason why my show kind of reflects that is because that's exactly like who I am. I'm constantly like exploring ideas, and I have a lot of libertarian friends, but then I've had Professor Richard Wolff, who's like the one of the leading experts in the history of Marxism, and so it's just like, to me, I'm all about exploring ideas, and I don't ever want to believe that I have any topic or subject figured out. So it's not like, oh, I don't need to talk to him because I have this shit figured out. It's like, no, let me, this person seems interesting. I like what they're saying. Let me have them on, and let's explore some ideas. So
that's the way to do it, man. That's the way to do it, and people tend to look at people that are into these things or into the stuff that we are, as having like a narrow mind, or at least, you've run into a few people that might allege that. And it's like, really, it's quite the opposite. It's like the only reason we're here is because we've explored probably ideas just across the board. You might even start off with an idea that sounds ridiculous on its face, but then you come out understanding some of the tenets of it a little bit better, even if you don't end up believing it. That's the fun of this line of work, man. Not only just meeting people, which is, by the way, new to me. Like, I was lone wolf in it for a little while, and then I, just tried to start talking to people more and get involved, because there's plenty of nice dudes out there like you and the people that we were hanging with the last time. And I said, I got to really get out there a little bit, make some friends. Been doing this alone too long, so let's do it,
Get kind of dark and lonely, like talking about like the evils of the world over and over again. I remember when I had Brian on the show, who did the Franklin Scandal book, and it was just like it was weird. It was like a necessary show, because I think it was one of those scandals that people needed to hear. And we even brought up Jeffrey Epstein. This was before he was like his name and whatnot. But it's those type of shows. I'm like, I have to do shows on these topics, because I'm like, this stuff exists. People need, and it's not, I'm a parent. I'm like, it's not easy to talk about this type of stuff and hear about this trauma. And does it make you a little paranoid? Yeah, because we all have kids. We have kids that go to soccer practices. We have kids who not mine necessarily, because they're not really old enough yet, but people have kids who sleep at friends' houses and whatnot. And it's not that I want to make people paranoid about leaving your kids with anybody else ever, but you should at least be aware that, like, there are monsters out there and people who are, who can potentially seem like a safe and innocent person who can potentially do something very evil. So, these topics are necessary. I never even answered your question about Roger Stone. I go on these freaking long rants.
Oh, I even forgot I asked the question. Anyway, I'm into this. No worries, dude.
Well, just quickly acknowledge that he was actually one of the times he was on back in the day. It was either about his Clinton book or his JFK book, the one about LBJ, the case against LBJ. He had technical issues, and he was waiting for his IT guy, and so we were kind of chit chatting while that was happening, and we just bullshitted about all types of stuff. I remember asking him, I'm a big like bourbon drinker, and
Yeah, okay.
so I'm like, oh, what does Nixon drink? And I was like, talking to him about all like a bunch of personal experiences, hanging out with Nixon and some of the other people he's hung out with,
Sick.
and he's actually, and it's funny, so many people will say this, he's actually a very pleasant guy. Like he's actually a really nice person. You can see how he can be charming, and one on one, he's definitely much different. If you listen to the episodes when he was on my show one on one, or even really any of the interviews he does one on one, he definitely seems to be a slightly different than when he was on that Zoom call. I think because there were so many people on there, he kind of felt like he had to be in character, where it's like,
Yeah, right.
and some people kind of threw him some some hardball questions and drilled him a little bit. So I feel like he was kind of like in political mode, where like he felt like he was on like Fox News, and I have to stick to my guns, and I can't be too casual because
right.
But outside of that, he's actually quite pleasant, and almost everybody that I know that have met him, they've said the same thing, where like you think this guy's like dirty trickster, like does all the dirtiest things to kind of get ahead in politics, wouldn't be a pleasant person to kind of chat with, but he is. And I guess, I mean, that's probably what makes him good at what he does. He's slightly charming and whatnot. And but I think even somebody like him who has done a lot of stuff I wouldn't agree with,
Right.
if he's willing to come on to shows like mine and others and talk to people who don't necessarily agree with him on everything and might grill him on stuff, and he's not afraid to kind of stray away from those conversations, then and he's also willing to talk about the inside. Like a lot of times we're on the outside talking about what goes on the inside, but to actually talk to people from the inside, I think is a it's a very unusual experience, and it's a great way of getting real information directly from the people who are involved.
Right.
And,
Yeah. And there's no parameters really. I mean, to get on a show like yours, is there's no limit to the information bandwidth, right? It's like you don't have to be in character, right? So you can kind of loosen up a little bit if you wanted to, but we can go for an hour and a half, we can go for 3 hours, we can, just say your piece. And if you pair that up with someone that's willing to speak about the inside, as opposed to say like an outlet, like just name any mainstream outlet, where it's like by default there's limitations. I mean, that's fantastic. That's the real way you want to get the information, which is so fascinating about the entirety of alternative media, which comparatively, only having really gotten active in 2016, this is still fairly new waters compared to, you've been doing this since 2013 under Ripple Effect Podcast. It's like, you guys have been at it for a long time, and that's why I figured I gotta jump into the waters here. It's like I want to become a part of it. And it's like, that's awesome that you get you'd be surprised the opportunities and the people you meet. That's the first thing I started to think of when like a few people started watching my show. I'm not like humongous, obviously, but it's like the people that watch, just great people, and those that sometimes reach out or that I'm able to reach out to. It's like sometimes I'll never really expect that they're even interested in these alternative viewpoints, or it's just nice surprises. A lot of times people are afraid to speak up or say something intrigues them, then all of a sudden you kind of see them pop up in a show, or like you get contacted by them, and I'm like, oh, cool. All right, nice.
Are you a sports fan by any chance?
No, you can take my man card away on that one, man. I know the basics. I'm actually pretty athletic, but in terms of viewing it, I don't really watch too many sports. I know the basics though, so it's like if I were to go to a game, I wouldn't be.
The reason I ask is because what you're saying is so true. So I had John Burkus on. Remember that show, Sports Science, that was on Sports Center?
I actually do know that one. Yeah,
the blonde guy who'd always he would kind of break down, how some scientific aspect of how a human body works or how an athlete does something.
Yeah.
Well, he's been on my show, and I remember after, and I mean, I'm saying this, I think this is the first time I've said this on air. After we got off, after the show ended, he's like hit me up real quick, and he's like, "Hey, can we still chat for a little bit?" I'm like, "Yeah, why not?" So we're talking, and he's like, I can't remember which one specifically, but he's definitely like, hey, I watched some of your shows. He's like, you don't know how many of these conspiracy theory rabbit holes I've been down. And he's like, I just can't talk about it on air. So we end up like talking for a while. So it's exactly like you said, like a lot of people are, because of public shaming or being pigeonholed it as a conspiracy theorist or, you know, anti-vaxxer, whatever like trigger word they like to use to kind of discredit everything.
Arbitrary titles.
A lot of people they also have their doubts about a lot of the same things we are questioning. The only thing is, like you said, publicly they're a little afraid of speaking out because of those labels. But the nice thing about this community, like you said, it's awesome when people like yourself are willing to be like, okay, well, I'm doing my own thing, but you know what? Let me connect with, because once you do that, like you said, you realize like how nice everybody is, you know, and how, you know, the thing is, people can watch your show, they can watch my show, they can watch, you know, we're not necessarily competing with one another.
Yeah.
You know, we can help each other out because nobody's a real threat, you know, and
Exactly.
like my stuff's all open source, and you know, I tell people like post it anywhere, I don't care. You know, I have very much that James Corbett type of philosophy in regards to like the information's more important than me getting the traffic directly. So like do whatever the hell you want to do with it. I just want to get the conversations out there.
Yeah.
But you know, even myself, like, who am I? I'm just a fucking dude who was working a full-time job, like many of us, who are just like, I feel like there's something missing in my life. I don't feel like I'm contributing. I don't feel fulfilled. I mean, I used to play music in a band, and then I got out of that because it just got hard to keep everybody together and motivated, and life got in the way. And then in time, I, like many of us, you know, and I'm sure this is a common story for many people, next thing you know, I'm stuck doing the 9 to 5 thing. Well, it's more like 7 to 3, but whatever it is, you know, doing the full-time job and just going with the motions. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, what am I contributing? And I just, a long time would go by, a while would go by where I'm like, I got to do something. I got to do something. And I just couldn't figure out what the fuck it was. Like, what was it going to be the thing that I was going to do? And music, you know, I attempted to do it on my own, but it was so time consuming, and to write a song yourself and release it, and, you know, all that type of stuff. And a podcast just felt easy. Like, I can talk. I'm like, obviously I can talk. So I'm like, why not just record it and try to do that and see where it goes? And so what was your backstory? Like, how did you get in all this? Like, was there a certain topic, subject that sparked your interest? Did you have similar feelings in regards to kind of feeling like you had to do something? What was it?
Yeah, so at first it wasn't a feeling of needing to do something. I mean, I've always thought I had to give back, but I always kind of got in that trap of like, what will it be? How do I do this? You know, so I just tried my best every day. And at that time I was working at a health insurance agency. This was back in like 2014. And I can't tell you, I shared a little bit about this on the last thing, but I'll expand a little bit, because this is actually why I stick to doing what I do in the format that I do it, kind of like a lecture-like format. Is I've always been interested in the UFO phenomenon and that topic, but dude, it's the weirdest thing. I don't know what prompted it. But I suddenly had this really negative like wave overcome me, where I was like, what do I actually know about this at all? I actually sat back and thought, it dawned on me just like randomly. It was like an epiphany that technically, like, you've never actually fact checked any of this. Like, you just take whatever it is. And then it started to realize, like, it's not just UFOs. It's, what do I know about this? Like, what do I actually, and it freaked me the hell out, like, pretty thoroughly, you know? So at that point, I actually rearranged my life to consciously go about it in a way where, you know, I was always reading the news as it is. I wasn't plugged into like deep politics like I am now. And even then, I'm kind of more on the outside of that. I do my own thing. But I started to apply everything I read about. Okay, let me actually rigorously double check that. So rather than reading 5 articles at a time, I'd take that one and I'm like, all right, so I dissect it. You know, I'd look into these people, make it come alive in a way. But I really executed the beginning of all this really came in late 2014, mid 2014, where I took the UFO example as a perfect exercise in doing that. I said, well, this is a subject that should be fairly easy to either debunk completely, which I knew it wouldn't be that. It's a matter of how far can I go with 100% verifiable, credible evidence. And, you know, let's build that platform and see how big of a building I can build, you know? So I really just, at that point, stopped watching TV shows on it, stopped watching anything that they give me, and instead I got into the literature. I read the literature. I familiarized myself with researchers over, you know, Hynek, you know, Vallée, all these different researchers over time, started from the beginning chronologically, mostly actually the 40s, and then went further from there. And, you know, I wouldn't go any further until I can actually prove whatever it is that I was thinking about in that moment. And I was surprised. This is really what dawned, or like what hit me, and why I got the bug, so to speak, right? Where I was like, holy shit, you can get pretty far, with credible, reliable sources, And plus I was really happy that like my favorite, thing to look into wasn't complete bullshit, so that was a little bit of a relief. But then perfect timing was 2016. Um, I was never political in that sense. I was already in UFO world, but I wasn't really a politics guy, and I'm still half and half on that. It's funner now than it was back then, but I'm still, yeah, it gets boring after a while, which is why I like the UFO stuff. But the summer of 2016, it was with the DNC leaks, with Assange, with Trump, things were very different and they were heated. And I kind of liked that. I noticed a sort of spark, like a flame, that that I never saw. And again, it's not like I was very politically active before this, but it's like I didn't really feel it around my peers culturally with like Obama or whatever it is. Trump like ignited something in people, and people were active, and I kept seeing Twitter posts going around with these DNC leaks and, oh my God, the corruption, the this, the that. And at that point, I was still really apathetic. It's like, okay, great, UFOs are awesome, but politically, I really had a bad sense of apathy. What's the point? Like, there's a lot of corruption. It'll never get fixed, and how can we ever see it? I mean, look, these people rule the world, right? It's like, what am I going to be able to find that would do anything? But then basically they just kept bombarding that. I saw them everywhere, DNC leaks, on Twitter, this, that. And I was like, all right, let me fucking check this out. By October, I finally broke. And I'm like, what the heck? So I checked out the Podesta emails when they leaked. I said, all right, let me get to the bottom of whatever these people are ranting and raving about. And I got myself a Twitter, just because I was like, apparently I've seen all these Twitter links. I said, apparently this is kind of where the information's being disseminated. So you could see how naive. I didn't even know like this was just an information battleground, was very separate from all this. Then I found like 4chan and just the different Reddit subreddits and little nooks and crannies of the internet, but doing really great research. So it was actually more of seeing people crowdsource research in live time that did it for me. So when I saw people dumping the WikiLeaks and applying the same rigorous effort of fact checking that I only just learned, but they have been doing for a long time, I was astonished at what the connections people were making. The infographics that people would put together with connections, the flow charts, this, they all have different specialties that come in handy when we're all looking at the same thing. And people organize themselves. You do this, I'll cover this. I'll cover page 10 through 15. You get 15 through 20. And I said, this is amazing. And then I really, really ramped up when I started to see that work had direct effects on the mainstream media and some elements of just politics in general, especially like when Donna Brazile got fired, when we found the email about, the leaked debate questions, and then I watched later on the news, Donna Brazile gets fired. And I'm like, oh shit, like people, there really is something we can do to a certain extent. And yeah, it was just history from there. They got me right off the bat. I said, this is exactly what I needed. I'm no longer apathetic. You can do something after all. It was a bit of a relief, as stressing or frustrating as it can be to dig in the mud and deal with some of these topics, especially me being mostly interested in the Franklin scandal type of stuff. So it's very dark, but it's worth it, man. It's worth it. So lucky that I managed to break out of the hypnosis machine. Didn't know how bad it was for me.
Yeah. Well, I think, that's one of those things where even I remember when I first started my podcast and kind of brainstorming with some friends, I'm like, oh, these are some of the topics I want to talk about and whatnot. And, that's something that people always will say to you. And also, I'm sure we have those internal dilemmas. It's like, well, what can I do? Am I just talking about it? But I think talking about it, we kind of dismiss as it's not something that is doing anything, but I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we us as it's funny because people have been using this word. I've never saw myself as an influencer.
Yeah.
But I guess if you're a YouTuber or content creator, I guess you're an influencer.
Yeah.
You're an influencer.
I struggled to find the words too. From me, I didn't expect anyone to watch the show. I was making videos at that time already. I basically planned on doing what I'm doing now, but basically specifically for UFOs. So I had a new channel set up. I got on Instagram, you know, to disseminate. Just I got across the board. Podesta emails hit. I said, well, I was already filming like just sketch comedy shit with my friends, you know, nothing too serious, but I was always making little short videos and stuff like that, not really posting them anywhere. But then I saw people like you and, you know, people doing the same type of thing. I said, I am pretty savvy with video editing and creation of videos. I said, this is right up my alley. I mean, and this is the first time I felt like a passion like that within me ignite, you know, aside from like skateboarding in middle school or something like that, you know. I felt, like I said, I caught the bug, dude. It's interesting. We are, but yeah, I almost forgot what you said this time, but yeah, the influencers and creating content, I almost feel weird calling myself that, but it's like we also underestimate, like I said, there's a vacuum out there. There's not many people doing exactly this and putting the work in and remaining consistent, and people are drawn to that because this is a very isolating type of belief system. Whatever it is, we explore the taboo, we explore the fringe, we explore the things that are really not, you know, maybe politically correct or outliers, you know, things that you get called crazy for in a lot of cases. And you begin to realize that people are thirsting for that information, just like I was, and didn't even know it. You know, people argue, how do you deal with, you know, all this stuff? You're constantly reading about like just trafficking and that and corruption and, you know, but it's like, I'd rather see the enemy for what they are, because before this, I had a vague idea of there's no hope. What's the point? This is far better. Just a bunch of jerks, you know, and it's not really a humongous group. There's a lot of great people out there. So in a way, to me, it's actually made me happier, you know, in a certain way, just knowing that there's a really tight knit group of people out there, or there could be. I mean, with the little community I've formed that I never even imagined having, regardless of size, it's like they're committed and they do good work. They send me great. It's just cool, man. I really am so happy that I found myself down this path. Like I said, out of sheer luck. Let me check these Podesta emails. What the hell are these people talking about? If I didn't sit down and do that, God knows when I'd find this, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's the difference between somebody who watches that documentary or goes down that rabbit hole and then goes on with their everyday life, or somebody like yourself who it changes them, or at least motivates them to want to do something about it. And I think that's what kind of makes us all unique. It's funny you said skateboarding. I was the same thing. I was like a BMXer and skateboarder growing up.
Nice.
Skater kid, big metal.
Yep.
And
yeah, same here, man. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Who
Yep.
How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
No, that's cool. Yeah, I'm 29. Yep. So 91, I was born. And yeah, did a lot of skateboarding when I was younger. I didn't BMX into skating, kind of took over. I quit, like, you know, playing baseball when I was super young. I BMX'd even when I was very young. You know, I hit those, the tracks. I have vague memories of going to those tracks, and, you know, it was very competitive, too competitive for me. And then I eventually tried baseball, got into that for a little bit, but then skating was where it really ramped up. You know, we're always producing skate videos. We were going out and it was awesome. Just putting my body through absolute hell, you know. And in terms of the music, that was very much what I was into. Probably more like newer forms, stuff that like veteran death metal fans would probably shit on, but I still like it for what it is. You know, things like metalcore, deathcore, After the Burial, Between the Buried and Me, bands like that. If you ever heard of them, went to see Mastodon. I saw Mastodon live, shit like that, you know. And as long as it's similar to that, you know, there's a good chance I'll probably be into it.
Well, the metalcore scene was, I know like the whole Christian metalcore scene gets shit on a lot, but I think same thing with like the new metal scene, because, you know, I'm 35, so I grew up during the new metal scene, and I think there's a lot of like shitty bands that kind of ruined that whole genre, but there's a lot of gems, and there's a lot of like really, really good artists. You know, I mean, I was a big Static X fan.
Oh yeah, of course.
1 Minute Silence. I had the singer on my show, Yap. Fear Factory. You know, I had Burton C. Bell on the show. I had Mike Martin from All That Remains. He's been on my show.
Oh shit.
He's from the same town that I.
What? No way. That's awesome, man. Yeah, of course. That's All That Remains is one of those like early bands that I really got into, because it's like my dad made sure to raise me on like Pantera, Anthrax, Metallica. Like they just instilled me with like, you know, that type of shit stuff.
There is the original Dimebag Darrell Washburn, the guitar.
What?
That was like one of my first nice guitars.
Damn, that's awesome. That's fucking awesome, dude. So yeah, man, like ever since then, that's basically what I've been into. I've got like an eclectic music taste, but across the board, as many people say, but it is true, you know, whether it's hip hop, metal, but metal is where the heart is for me. You know, I like other stuff, but it's got a special place for me.
I remember seeing Under Oath live, like when I mean they really, like, it's funny, they're one of those bands that really evolved. Like initially they're a little more poppy, and then it got real dark.
Yeah.
I remember bringing my wife to I used to bring her to the show. I remember when I brought her to go see Devil Wears Prada. I love Devil Wears Prada. Like,
Oh, they're great, man. I love them too. Hell yeah,
my
absolutely.
favorite metalcore bands, and they're consistent. Like every album's good, been slightly different than the last one. And I remember when we went to go see them live, and my wife's like, "Who the fuck's Devil Wears Prada?" She just wearing the shirts and whatnot, but she didn't know who the hell they were. And then we go to the show, and it's packed. Like, you can't move. And I'm like, this is the beautiful thing about the internet. Like, before, if somebody wasn't on the radio, like, they just weren't known. And now somebody who listens to the radio, like my wife, could have no fucking idea who this band is, and they're ginormous. And they, I think we went to the Palladium in Worcester, and they were just like sold out, butts to nuts. Everybody's crammed together, and
Yeah.
and she was like, I cannot believe that these people have such a big fan base. And
Right.
in the New England area, I'm from Massachusetts, like the New England area where I live right outside of Springfield, Massachusetts.
Oh, sure.
That's where a lot of the metalcore scene was getting big. Like Unearth is from this area. Like I said, All That Remains, Killswitch Engage.
Yep, classic.
Yeah, so it's cool to kind of be in like the heart of that scene. But metalcore was one of those genres that kind of, a lot of people like, oh, it's metalcore. That it was just a phase. Like, because you had bands like Bring Me the Horizon and Asking Alexandria, where they end up becoming like more popish as time went by.
Right. Yeah. Completely different from their origins, more radio friendly. It's kind of like the antecedent sort of to what we were valuing in a way. In one way, I get it. They want to survive as a band and have as many people listen to them. But
that's the other, I always have this internal dilemma. I'm like, well, what if I was in that band and I was in the same type of genre of music over and over again? Like, how many breakdowns am I going to play before
I know. Yeah, you gotta switch it up a little bit. And as my philosophy is, like, even if I'm personally disappointed at the direction, as long as they're authentic about it, if they were truly moving in a direction like that and not forcing it in there, because sometimes you can hear it like forced, that it just isn't them, and you'll see them sneakily return kind of the next album, like, we tried that, it wasn't really us. But the people that do stick with it, at least they stick with it and they're authentic about it. But yeah, it is always a little bit of a shame when you're like, oh shit. But yeah, I mean, they never got enough, in my opinion, when these older metal fans were, nothing against them, after all, this is where it comes from, but they underestimated, because they'd always like just bring up oh, this is just chugging music, right? It's just breakdowns after breakdowns. I was like, not really, man. I mean, there's a lot of technical prowess these people are putting down in these bands. I think you might be underestimating them,
Well, I think that the purists of any music genre can get too caught up. Like, I feel like if you overanalyze anything, like, for example, like I was saying, I like bourbon, I like wine, I like cigars. These are all like type of things that attract a lot of a-holes, because
yeah, of course.
You'll get the type of person who is so, like, I've hung out with people where they're like, oh, life's too short to drink cheap wine, this and that, like, and I'm like, what do you consider cheap wine? I'm like, I have a glass of wine every night. I'm like, I can't afford a $40, $50 bottle of wine every night. I'm like,
No.
oh, broke, and so I'm like, but I think you can get so caught up into the technical aspect of it that you forget why it's important. And I related to music in regards to, like, same thing with music. We're like, so wine, like, what makes it a joy, what makes it fun is enjoying it with other people. It's the positive feeling you get out of it, right? Because I mean, that's kind of what makes us human. And this we can get into transhumanism and the whole idea of, like, you're basically stripping us of what makes us human, and that's emotion. And having that social event with some friends and having a glass of having a cigar, having a bourbon. When I first got into this stuff, my palate didn't even develop. I didn't even know what I was tasting and why I should like it.
Right.
What I really was attracted to was, like, the fact that it gave me a reason to get together with some friends, and it forced us to put our phones aside and just talk. And one of the reasons I started this podcast is because I enjoy conversation. So it gave me a reason to kind of capture a fun conversation where you get a little deeper with your thoughts and your life experiences. And music can be the same thing. We can get so like, I know people that were amazing technical guitarists and musicians that could not write a song to inspire anybody,
Yeah.
so it's like some of the songs that move you, some of the songs like Under Oath had this song called To Whom It May Concern, and it was like a real dark song it was the last track on the album. It was just a real dark song, and it had a feel to it that
Yeah.
like I could not recreate. I couldn't. That just had this sense of, and I was going through some shit in my life with some drinking issues and
Sure.
kind of in a somewhat dark place. And I remember listening to that song, and it struck me I understood the feeling of the song, and I related to it, and it had nothing to do with like technically like what they were playing, the riffs, or some incredibly difficult drum beat or anything like that. It was a feeling. And so I think sometimes people can get, like I said, so caught up in these technical things that it's like, well, how do you feel when you listen to it? Like,
Yes, exactly. Do you like it?
yeah,
That's it. Do you like it? And after that, pick it apart if you want, right? But it's like, how do you feel? Like you said, when you listen to it, just let it speak for itself. After all, it's what music is supposed to do. It's not like people listen to music to just pick out the beats like intricately. They listen to it because it makes them move a little bit, inside or outside.
yeah, no, without, I remember when I met my wife, because she was a dancer her whole life, and I don't mean stripper. I mean
That's cool.
she was like, doing recitals as a kid and all this stuff, and she loved music that made her dance. And I didn't get it because like I was a musician, and I'm just like, I like dark stuff. I like stuff that emotionally took me to a place that she
Yeah.
didn't really like, and I'm like, oh, we like music for different reasons. But then as time went by, I started appreciating the fact that like, okay, we both are getting the same thing out of music. We're getting some type of emotion out of it. That's what we enjoy. That inspiration to in my case, that inspiration I would get from a song to write or think about things, and her inspiration would be to dance. So it's like it's still driven by emotion. So I started kind of understanding that, and it's like, well, it doesn't matter, I guess, what type of music you like or what inspires you to do. It's always some link to emotion. Like it's always it's like a good movie. What, well, a movie that really sticks with you, or even a good conversation, like it affects you emotionally.
Right.
And so I think like you said, like how do you feel when you listen to it? If it moves you in some way, then who am I to say it's not good?
Yeah, exactly. And I guess there's no surprise that people like you and I seems like we have some overlap in terms. I mean, the music, she said was, I'm surprised they have such a following, and I've never heard of them because they aren't on the radio. So it's like if you really think back, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but just going off what you just said, it's like there is a level of being an outsider there, right? Where it's like that's why they're so tight knit. So even from the beginning, outside of all this, I was very much drawn to things that just so happened to be on the outside. And it wasn't because I was sour about the world necessarily. If anything made me sour, it was more like, damn, it's like all my hobbies are things that like aren't in the mainstream, and it kind of shifts you into a bracket that I didn't ask for, but it's, yeah, so it's like the type of having an iPod that people, can't play at a party, right? You don't want to listen to that, right? I know you guys don't like it. So just that type of thing where you're not able to have these discussions with most people because they haven't listened to The Devil Wears Prada. They haven't listened to Between the Buried and Me. They're not into it. So it's funny that, now, once again, a passion ignited in me, the biggest of them all so far in my life is this, and it's very much on the outside. So I think that's kind of why subconsciously, being as I was a person that would have laughed at this, and I mean laughed, I would have unfairly made fun of people in this, and I admit that. It's not fair, it was very naive. And so not only just being on the outside for a while, so always socially functional. I had plenty of friends, so I wasn't like the dude in the corner, but all my interests were very much on the outside. So go figure that I end up doing this, but pair that up. And that's precisely why I use, how do I explain it? I use the knowledge that got me to this. I needed to see facts. I needed to see heavy evidence, or at least evidence that is enough to justify what some people are suggesting. you know, even if it wouldn't stand up in a court of law, okay, I get why you're suspicious of that person. Okay. So it's funny. So the idea of guiding people into this kind of, that's my goal, is to create a bridge between our groups and you know, the normies of the world, people not into this, the uninitiated. And as much as I might want to go wild and talk about just the crazy stuff that I do believe exists, you know, the personal approach that I take is making it, how do I explain it, just digestible for you know, the people that are uninitiated. And of course, not all videos are like that, but so it's why the format's kind of a lecture type format. You know, it's going to be very hard to debunk, and that's what I needed to get here, and it's been effective. And I think that's just why I dedicate the time to this. You know, is it just speaks to me being on the outside, but I wasn't always there. I want to bring more people into this, and there's different ways to do it. You know, I see a lot of them, like I would be scared away by, because it's not like I'm as unfamiliar with conspiracy theories. I was always reading up about 9/11, like the basics, you know, but you know, mind control stuff, never believed in it. But there's documentation to suggest, hey, at the very least, it was an objective. You can argue how successful it was, but I just had a major blind spot, you know? So it's just interesting that I was interested sort of in some alternative viewpoints, but I needed just stone cold facts. And I think that's what other people need too, because often I'd pull up a video trying to learn more about something, and they drop in just what I perceived at the time to be absolutely just out there, and it delegitimized the entire video for me. How can I trust someone, you know, about this 9/11 thing if he believes in X, Y, and Z? And so that's why I'm very careful about, you know, how I go about this, because it is very delicate. And after being scared away from all of this for so long, just because I didn't believe it, you know, you buckle down, find the truth and the evidence, and that's that. People, at the very least, people can't deny it, even if they don't come over to our side completely. I showed you that there's more legitimacy to it than you would have ever believed. That's my overarching goal, I think.
Yeah, well, it's funny you talk about how you kind of always attracted to things on the fringe, because that's something we talked about. It's funny because the Union of the Unwanted was initially kind of like a extra episode that we would put out, and it wasn't its own thing. It was like, okay, these group conference calls type things, you know, hangout shows, we're gonna call them the Union of the Unwanted, but it's gonna be on my RSS feed. And then we decided to kind of make it its own thing. Eventually we're like, you know, we should really kind of make it its own thing. And one thing that was super important to me when like Sam, Charlie, and Mike and I all chat about this, I'm like, listen, one thing that's like super important is keeping this community type thing, because I think people really relate to the name of the show and what we're trying to create, this idea of a community for people on the fringe, people who maybe don't have friends that can talk about this type of stuff, people who have always felt like outsiders. And that's why I think the name, the Union of the Unwanted,
Yeah.
connects with people, because a lot of us have always felt like outsiders. If you're into this alternative media topics, you know, anything from like alternative history to, like you said, supernatural stuff and 9/11, I mean, you always felt like you weren't the mainstream, like you were always going against the mainstream, what everybody else believed. You were the guy at the party who was saying some, you know, what other people would see as crazy stuff. And or you know, or in many cases, and I'm sure, you know, it's happened to you, where you end up having a conversation with people, even if you are only focusing on stuff that's 100% provable and factual, people will still eventually still call you the conspiracy theorist.
Of course. Yeah.
It's like, okay, I guess, you know, I guess that's what I am, you know.
Yeah. I just came to terms with it
Yeah.
after a while. I said, ah, shit, I never once ever believed I'd be like that guy, you know? And I didn't even dislike those guys. I just never envisioned myself as really diving in headlong. And I think that's what's particularly like demonic about the censorship and being employed. And we touched on this a little bit in the last Union of the Unwanted show, is now take people that have been on the fringe for their entire lives. Take people that might not have a strong support network, whether it be friends, family, whatever it might be, and now neutralize them completely, or just erase them, prevent them from actually, the first time a lot of these people are able to bond with someone that might not have friends that understand, you know, in real life, I finally meet you guys, and we've got comprehensive shutdowns, censorship on Twitter. And the worst part about it is insult to injury. It's actually particularly sadistic is the shadow banning idea. And like I said, take someone that's already on the fringe, and that affects people in different ways. It can get you down. It can be, why me? Like, why am I the different one? I wish people didn't perceive me X, Y, and Z. I wish I can be into what they enjoy. You know, however people dealt with it. Some people own it and it's no big deal, but a lot of people don't like. Most people on the fringe would like to be involved with the wider populace. It's just not where their interest lies, you know? And when you're talking about the censorship, it's just so sad, because it's like people that have been on the fringe for so long now take their voice away without any choice, especially with shadow banning, where it's like sadistically making you, like, projecting an illusion into a room, convincing you you're talking to people, right? And then just, you're not at all. You're talking to no one. You're talking to a projection screen. And it starts to eat at you. You know, maybe my work isn't that good. Maybe my content isn't that great. And you know, maybe people just don't like me, you know what I mean? Or like my work. When in reality, you're being algorithmically pigeonholed, put into a corner, similar to, I don't know, maybe your experiences your entire life when you choose to listen to an obscure band, right? That you can't discuss with anyone about, really, save for a few folks or whatever, or if that makes sense, right? Oftentimes these people that are on the outside will find forums, will find video, well, just content creators that they can vibe with if they don't have it in real life. And now we're being separated from each other in a way, which is why, like you said, the Union of the Unwanted, it speaks to me as well. And it should speak to everyone. And the very idea is keeping people together and cohesive. They're trying to scatter us into the winds. What we wanted to do to the CIA, they are doing to us, you know, ripping them up, scattering them into the winds.
Yeah, yeah, no, without a doubt. I mean, the Ripple Effect podcast, when I started that, it was the idea that we can all make a difference and we can all do something, and we can all start a ripple. So I mean, it was.
I like the name. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, and really the show's become a example of it, because like I said, I was doing a typical full-time job, just wanted to start a podcast, and little by little kind of just started. I mean, a little bit was a lot of hard work, because one thing, I know you do a different type of show. You don't book guests, but I would write so many fucking emails. People are like, "Oh, how did you get this person on?" I'm like, if you only knew how many emails I would write out, or how many hours I would spend searching websites, Facebook accounts, Twitter, like whatever, looking for some contact information. So I mean, it definitely took some time, but I would, I was motivated to just, like, I want to get in touch with these interesting people. I want to have them on, and then little by little it grew, and now a lot of other content creators have hit me up, similar to when people contact you and say, hey, like, your story has motivated me to start my own show or whatever. And I'm always
right.
Like, dude, start your own show. You need help?
Yep.
People email me and write me on social media all the time about, like, hey, what do I need? What do I do? What do you, I'm like, do this, do that. I'm like, if you need a guest, I'll come on your show. And
yeah, those are the best emails, man. Those are the best when people message me, and whether it's like, this really woke me up, or I showed this video to a friend that doubted it and it changed his mind, or at least, those are the greatest. But more importantly, in my opinion, actually, I'd put them equal, to be honest with you, to inspire someone to create themselves. Like, if you're a creator, you're good in my book, as long as you're creating what you think to be good for the world, right? And not something that's a net negative. Like, so when people contact me and say, I'm really interested in doing something similar, what do I need? Like, what editor program do you use, or what, I geek out over that. And once again, it's no surprise I'm here forever. It's like, I was more involved, like, with bands, obviously I would love their music, but I would listen to endless amounts of interviews about the craft and how they perfected it and grew. So I was always seeking a craft to get better at. Skateboarding, I got pretty good at that. I got pretty nasty. And it's no wonder that I really buckled down with this too, and just want to get to it. And when you start to actually see the results after years just doing it alone, and mind you, I'm still new comparatively, right? 2016, but it wasn't until 2018 where I even got to chatting with like-minded people online. And then to think that they'd not only watch stuff that I even do, but message me and say that I'm interested in doing this. What do I need to do? I'd say the same thing. I'm like, listen, when you do that, hit me up, because I'd love to come on, just say the word. I'll tweet this out, I'll share stuff, like we're in this together. It's like, I actually want, my aim is to kind of create like a self-sufficient, like creative ecosystem. So it's like, if viewers of my show make music, right, I'd like to, because I'm a sucker for making like montages and like compilations for intros and stuff, just little funky things, funny stuff sometimes. It's like, send me your beats and I'll use it, I'll credit you, you're already a viewer of the show. And then, it's a cycle. If you do graphic art, if you don't mind, I'll throw it up as a banner, and I'll give you credit for that. So it'd be very cool to have an entire ecosystem of creation that feeds itself with the very community that you worked very hard to build. So I'm hoping to one day achieve that, and it's coming along. It's a lot of fun, man. So yeah, I agree. When people hit you up with that, it's like, yes, it really is making an effect, and especially to make people want to create. It's no easy task, especially if they go and do it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, the amazing, and I think it was the Truthzilla guys that said this. It's like, we're not just inspiring people to think differently. We're actually now inspiring people to actually do differently. They're actually I mean, Truthzilla was one of those people where I remember them hitting me up. We have this idea of a podcast and this and that. I'm like, dude, I'm like, they're like, what do we need or whatever? And I'll just give them some advice. And now, they're doing really well, and they're starting to get a good following and whatnot.
Who is this? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the name.
Truthzilla. The Truth.
Oh, okay. Yep.
They're awesome. Yeah, they've been on a couple of Union of The Unwanted shows, and we try to do that too, where we'll invite, like we had Adam from Deborah Gets Red Pilled podcast on.
Okay.
Which I don't know if you're familiar with that podcast. It's a fairly new podcast, but it's an awesome concept. He's trying to red pill his mother-in-law, and so every episode, and she's like a super CNN watching lefty, classic liberal type of, hippie mom. And,
sure.
And she, well, I mean, I was on the show. I mean, I talked to her for like 2 hours, and so it's awesome how she actually takes the time to listen and have honest discussion and whatnot. But yeah, we had them on. It's like, that's another thing we talked about too. It's like, let's have some of these up and coming shows. Let's have them on the Union of Unwanted and help them with networking and getting their word out. Because again, we're not all in competition. Actually, it's the other way around. We're all fighting the same thing. And I think that, even though, and I've said this a lot on the show, one thing that sucks in the alternative media community, we talk about a lot of the positives. One of the things that sucks, and you don't, at least in the bubble that I've built and try to live in, I try to filter those people out. But there's a lot of people out there who will discredit somebody completely because of one disagreement, or and I won't say names, but I mean, there's some people out there that are notorious for like shitting on somebody because they disagree on, one piece of work. And it's like, wait, like you're assuming, their intentions, like their intentions are to deceive somebody, or they're dumb because they got this wrong. It's like if they're fighting for the same thing I'm fighting for, then fuck all those other disagreements. I don't care. Like we can figure that out later, but as long as like you're trying to do the same thing that I'm doing, and that's like try to have more freedoms and rights and fight against government corruption, corporate corruption, like those type of things, like then we're on the same team regardless if we agree on everything or not.
Exactly. It's the infighting that'll ruin us. I mean, it's not like we have, it's a bigger group than you'd think, but it's still a very small portion, going back to the idea of so many people out there that are looking for this information, but not many people doing. I mean, I know there's a lot of people, but compared to, just name the endeavor, name the hobby, there's probably more of them than there are us. So it's like the infighting, it kills me, because it's like and I thank God I've so far managed to avoid this. Number one, I don't bring up anything about any other content creator unless, of course, they're constructive criticisms that I believe could be beneficial to the current conversation that I'm holding. And even then, like that could be a constructive criticism within someone that just edited a masterpiece of a film that I can never touch with my current level of editing abilities. So I'm not claiming to be better than anyone else, but I wish, maybe he could have mentioned this, things that actually benefit. But if we come to actually taking someone down as being, oh, he's just a grifter, he's a shill, he's a, he's a plant, this, in the circles I run with, there's a lot of distrust. And I actually kind of went on a little bit of a rant the other day in a stream, and some people in the chat, and they're good friends of the show, by the way, but there was one element that I disagreed with very passionately on that was, comedian Tim Dillon. I'm not like super familiar, right, 100%, but he makes me laugh, number one. So if we're talking about music speaking to you, I don't know Tim. I had never talked to him. I don't know I don't know his beliefs. If you were to put bullet points, if I would believe them, but some of the stuff that he drops through the channel of comedy, whereas I'm, super serious and trying to loosen up a little bit, make it more fun. Being serious all the time is a little bit of a bummer, but that's another door to the truth. I think we might have even mentioned that last time too. And people were just thinking like, nah, Tim, he's why, he just kind of came out of nowhere. You really trust that guy? I said, listen, I said, I don't like that. Show me how he's an Israeli shill. Show me how he's a David Brock internet, like a disinfo. Show me, and I'm like, how do you know that he just blew up out of nowhere? Because you just discovered him? I mean, this guy's probably been doing comedy for a decade, at least, because he's on Rogan, he's a shill.
Yeah. I mean, everybody has a breakout. I mean, not everybody, but a lot of people who have a breakout moment or time in their career. It does, if you weren't following them, it does seem like, oh, they just came out of nowhere.
Right. And yeah, it's not like it's not credible. There's people that are paid to do this, but I need more. This guy doesn't have a history, as far as I know, of like negative things or sabotage or making us look foolish. I mean, I've just seen good things. And I said, and I told my good friend of the show, like I said, a few people shared this. I said, I think you don't want to live in a world where you can't trust anyone. I said, what about me? I said, I've gotten more views now than I ever have, but I'm still very small as a content creator. And it's like, what if something happens with me where I have a ton of eyes on me? Like, am I suddenly, a plant? Am I a shill? I said, I go out of my way to like prove to you, I don't have to show my face. I run in circles where a lot of people remain anonymous. I put my face out there. My name is floating around. It's like my room is kind of a mess. Like, I could clean up a little. I'm not an agent. And you don't want to live in a world where you can't trust anyone. Always remain open. But
the music stuff, because it's like if a band breaks out, we kind of had this discussion already. Like the band breaks out and their style changes. We don't know if it changed because of the money, like they're getting paid to do it, or it changed because that's just how they evolved. And so just because somebody's successful, it doesn't mean we know their intentions. Like we for sure know. And Tim, I mean, I've had Whitney Webb on my show a bunch. She's awesome. I'm good friends with her. I don't see, and she's a very good researcher. I don't see her going on Tim Dillon's show if she thought that there was anything sketchy about him.
Right.
And Whitney's a very good researcher. She probably could find something on Tim if she wanted to.
Yeah. I trust Whitney. If Whitney, felt that judgment was the right judgment, I don't have anything to prove otherwise because I trust Whitney. I mean, God's sakes, I mean, her research speaks for itself. It's incredible. And
he like, I know people who only are into comedy podcasts that listen to Tim Dillon, and he exposes those people to Whitney Webb's work because he has people like her on and he does talk about certain things. So to me, it's like, you know what, like just because you disagree with him maybe on something and now you think, oh, I caught him because now he's spreading, misinformation or disinformation, or maybe he just disagrees with you on that one topic.
Right.
That's the other option too. I mean, that's the other thing. Like people get called a shill all the time just because you disagree with them on that thing.
Yeah, I hate it. I can't stand it. It's so damaging. And the idea of Rogan being a gatekeeper, make of it what you will. I'm not even going to touch that as an argument. Believe it, don't believe it, whatever. But the idea of someone going on that show automatically kind of makes them, puts them in that light to some people, right? Tim Dillon gets on there. And I'm just using Tim Dillon as an example, fill in the blank with whomever. And I said, listen, if Rogan were to hit me up, okay, it's like, I'm not going to deny the opportunity because I think he might be a plant. No. What I'm going to do, even if he told me in the green room and my worst idea was realized and Rogan says, you can't talk about this, you can't talk. And it turns out he really is kind of a gatekeeper. You know what I would do? I would drop bombs. Artillery, just shell the shit out of his show. And then, let the audience watch him squirm, oh, okay. This stuff is real. MemoryHold's talking about it. And oh, wow, Rogan is, I guess my point is like, you don't want to deny the opportunity to speak to like millions. Just because you have those eyes doesn't make people get lucky. And sometimes, a lot of times, it's not luck. It's motivation, it's consistency, it's really working towards it. Like I said, like what I've built, which is not even scratching the surface compared to like someone like yourself going at this for a long time. It's interesting to be able to reach all these people, and it's like, man, if that's a level of I don't know, criticism that we're leveling against someone, it's like popularity, you know. If he was real, he wouldn't be getting that popular. They neutralize him. Really? Are you sure about that,
You've
though?
been on the Tinfoil Hat podcast. I mean, Sam has a huge following. And,
Yeah.
I mean, anybody who spent any time talking to him, he's a sincere person who really is intrigued with these topics. And just like anybody, I mean, you might disagree with him on a thing or two, but he's an honest, curious person who's willing to go down these rabbit holes publicly and ask these questions. And I think when you go far enough down these rabbit holes, I mean, I've had Eddie Bravo on the show. You know, there was
Nice.
the flat Earth. Eddie Bravo, this was
Of course.
pre-flat Earth Eddie Bravo, but he you know, he's another guy he has a huge following, right? And he's, you know, very popular and because of music and martial arts, and you know, he's another guy who's a really talented musician and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, people will be like, oh, he's a shill because he believes in flat Earth or whatever, like, oh, you know, or he just, you know, he went down that rabbit hole. There's something about that movement that spoke to him, that made sense to him. But he's best friends with Joe Rogan, gets to go on that show and bring up, I mean, he's brought up James Corbett's work on there. He's brought up you know, Ryan Dawson's work on there. He's brought up you know, people who would never be discussed on that platform. And
Exactly. They're plugged in. He's
yeah,
plugged right into already. Yeah.
that name and looking for that. So I mean, to me, yeah, I mean, it's doing more good than harm, I think. And I mean, the only problem is now, like I said, people are going online and Googling these people. The problem is, you know, like you said, with shadow banning and censorship, it's become harder and harder to do that. I know you're on BitChute. Are you on Odysee yet?
No, I'm not on Odysee, but I took a note of that when we were having a chat before the last show we did together, because I'm currently expanding across the board. So I meant to add this before when you talked about like the Corbett approach to the idea of just upload it. Like, I don't care who does it, just cut this into clips if you want. You know, my show, that's what I would love people to do, because I have gotten emails. Hey, can I re-upload this? Do you mind? Hey, not only re-upload it, edit them into clips. Like, I'd kill for that. I'm only one guy and these videos are already so long as it is. I'm tired after them. Clip them up, do what you want, just spread it. That's all. It's the info that really matters. And oh shit, I forgot where I was going at the tail end of that there.
I asked about Odysee if you're on Odysee.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Odysee, I have a note to join that. I just joined some I haven't really heard on, like BrightShot. I've never heard of it. Rumble.
No, Mike Adams from that. They call him the Health Ranger, naturalnews.com.
Yeah, I know the name. I'm not familiar with his work though, honestly.
He's been on my show a long time. He's much harder now to get a hold of because he's been kicked off everything. But he was the guy who started Natural News. He used to be on Alex Jones's show from time to time and host segments. But that's his platform. It's his.
Oh shit.
And yeah, Brighteon and Dr. Madej, Carrie Madej, who's been on my show. I know she's now posting her stuff on there. The cool thing about Odysee, though, and we've had Jeremy on the show on the Union of The Unwanted show that we did with a bunch of alternative platforms. Creators came on and talked about their platforms. Jeremy has this cool feature where you can literally sync your YouTube channel to Odysee. So what it does, it takes everything on your YouTube channel and literally creates your Odysee channel for you. So you don't have to upload anything or download anything. It just does it for you. So it's super easy. You can literally take your YouTube channel and just place it in Odysee /LBRY, because it's like the same thing.
I was about to ask, because I remember this last time, because I'm also on LBRY as well. I just did that, and I also synced over my YouTube channel. I was like, that's a unique, that's something we need. I mean, that's great. That saved me a ton of time, and I'm still trying to move over my old catalog to BitChute, and BitChute's been really, I'm gaining some traction there, because it's like, you know, I got nuked back in October at 24,000 subscribers before I even really gained traction on other alt platforms, because I thought I mastered the craft of towing a certain or walking a line. Because luckily, the format that I'm trying to employ, lecture-like format, facts only, I reproduce the facts for you on my screen. This is how I got this link. Most people would click the link and it's, oh, the website's no longer up. Well, go to Wayback Machine. Let me teach you how to do that real quick and you can see this is real. So I thought, okay, at the very least, I'm safe from spreading disinformation. I'm safe, a lot of authoritative sources like studies a lot of times and things like that. But I found out the hard way that it just wasn't reasonable enough for YouTube, I suppose. So
have you ever monetized on YouTube or no?
yeah, so I monetized my first channel a little bit late, and I didn't I still don't, and I don't really push too much of that, not really for any reason, but I tried to turn it into a little bit. The plan was to turn it into a little bit more of a model where I'd monetize, I'd set up, the PayPal, Patreon, because, I spend a lot of time and people emailed me themselves without me saying, hey, where can I throw you a tip for coffee or something? I said, oh shit, I never really actually thought about doing that. And after I started working with Mouthy Buddha back in August to do the Pedogate, just help with a little bit of research, there was an influx of viewers, new viewers, great people, and I didn't really have alternative platforms ready, let alone like a little bit of a mini baby business model, you know what I mean? And I guess it worked out for the better, being they ended up just erasing me as it is. So I'm kind of rebuilding and starting with all of that across the board, having it ready and really dedicating time primarily to like BitChute and DLive are like my two focuses at the moment. But these other platforms seem really promising, LBRY, Odysee, and the other ones too.
Odysee
Kind
and
of exciting.
are the same. They're the same website or same thing. Same. Jeremy created it, and it's so Odyssee's the one that is going to be the nicer looking one, and I think the LBRY is where like it's going to be kind of like the deep web where everything's available on there. And I think Odysee, I think eventually is going to be like a YouTube competitor where you're going to, maybe even have ads and whatnot, but everything will be available on LBRY. Maybe I think I don't know. He explained it. I'm not quite sure exactly how he's going to do this. I know that if you look at Odysee, it's much cleaner. It looks more like YouTube. It's actually super cool. It has all the same features as YouTube. You can like things, subscribe.
What's their website? Do you know it off the top of your head?
Yeah, Odysee.com. So it's like ODSYEE.com.
Perfect. Excellent. Just making a note here. Yeah, because I don't want to forget to get in there. I'll definitely look that up for sure.
Yeah, so your stuff might already be on Odysee because you said it's on LBRY. Because if you put it on one, I believe they're on both.
I was just about to ask that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm on Odysee.com right now. Yeah, it's did I say this right? ODYSEE.com. And then
perfect.
If you go on there. Yeah, it says MemoryHold 2.0.
Perfect. Yep, that's me. That is me. Excellent.
Yeah, I thought I actually did look on Odysee to see if you were there. Yeah. So you are here. Yeah, so you're on both, and
perfect.
So that's awesome. Yeah, and so it's basically super easy for people who are listening. If you want to end up putting, put your YouTube channel on Odysee, it does it all kind of for you, and then Float's the other one that they're really awesome too. I'm actually going to have Kingsley. Kingsley's been on. He's Kingsley Edwards. He's the guy who created Float.app. It's kind of like a Facebook competitor, but he has it's like Facebook times 1,000 because on their website and they have an app, which is really cool. Like Odysee doesn't have an app yet. LBRY does, but Odysee doesn't. It's weird. But there are some cool features like on Odysee, you can actually sync it to a Chromecast or that little like square that pops up when you can sync it to a Chromecast.
Yeah, that's a good function to have. Like for an alt platform, that's all. Because I personally don't use that function a lot, but I've learned underestimated how many that do. And number one, I don't know why I don't use it. It's fantastic. I don't know why I never utilized it, whatever. But people contact me saying, "Oh man, I wish I can Chromecast it on my TV." I'm like, shit, I never actually thought about that.
Well, one of the easiest ways of doing it, and because I've thought like YouTube's just so convenient.
Yeah, it is.
There's an app, you click on it, you already have, chances are you already subscribed to a bunch of stuff you like. So all the stuff you like is there. You click on it, watch it. It's convenient. It's on every single smart TV. It's on every single Fire Stick or whatnot. It's on every phone. So Odysee actually runs pretty smoothly. If you can just get a Firefox web browser. You just go to odyssey.com on your web browser. So like for people listening, like how do I watch Odysee on my Fire Stick? Well, just go to a web browser, put in the URL, and then you can go and watch it that way. Even though it doesn't have an app, it's one extra step, which us as humans, we are super fucking lazy. So it's like having that little app, it just makes life a tad easier.
It does. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. I'm the asshole that got banned at 24K and didn't think of really trying alt platforms, So it's like even the thing I rant and rave against, I actually fell for the trap just thinking that I was too safe, and that was a mistake. So I mean, I'm just thrilled that these platforms and they're reachable. Like you just said, that you're in contact with these people. I remember when I started using BitChute, I got a message from them, and I was like, this is customer support for it. These are small platforms that will inevitably grow. And here's the thing, they won't grow if we do not utilize them. Go on YouTube all you want, rant and rave about the censorship, but if you don't follow up and put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, aka what I wasn't doing until too late, but I'm relieved to be doing now, it's like we'll never break free of it. I mean, it's a bad case of Stockholm syndrome, and and I know how it feels. For the longest time, I didn't get a DLive channel. I didn't get and probably even then, there's even maybe better platforms for streaming, right? But now it's fun. It's awesome. It feels like we're on a new frontier. I mean, there's a level of safety there that we no longer have, and it's a whole separate community. And it's just, I like the idea of just spreading it out. Doesn't matter where it is, doesn't matter what format. Upload them everywhere. It's time consuming. Try to upload all these videos. I wish I had like an assistant and infinite money just to be able to pay someone just to upload stuff. Thank God for the transfer feature for Odysee and LBRY. So
there is a solution to that problem. So I was the same way. I wasn't on any alternative platforms until literally like maybe a month ago when I got all these alternative platform guys on the show. And then I'm like, you know what? I want to support them. I like them. I see the people behind the platforms. They're passionate about not censoring people. They're passionate about putting the information out there and fighting back against what big tech's doing. So I'm like, I got to go on these platforms. So I don't know if you know who Richard Grove is, but Richard Grove's like, he's a legendary researcher and just, podcaster and I mean, just really, really one of the smartest people I've ever met. Well, Richard Grove, he did a tragedy and hope I think it's .org or .com. His website, he used to have this podcast called Peace Revolution. He's also like a 9/11 whistleblower. And he also has a new podcast called Grand Theft World. And but so me and him have become friends throughout the years. And so he ended up telling me about this guy, Matt, who's a friend of Richard and been friends for a long time, big tech guy, who also a lot of the same beliefs that we have, these libertarian type of ideas of like being, just fighting back against censorship and having these issues and trying to find solutions for them. So he created this company called Content Safe. And what Content Safe does is that, and he was also on that Union of The Unwanted episode. And I had him on because of this reason. I'm like, listen, content creators need to know this guy exists. And what Content Safe is what he does with Content Safe is that you upload. So I now upload my stuff on YouTube. And then so once the show's uploaded, I upload it. And soon after, Content Safe will sync it to all the other platforms I'm on, BitChute, Float, and Odysee / LBRY, and I don't have to do anything. So I only have to plug in the thumbnail, the show description and information, all that stuff, the links, whatever I put in the show description, all that stuff I just have to upload like I'm uploading a YouTube channel, and he puts it everywhere else.
Damn. Is that a paid service? Is this something that's like still in its infancy? Can an average person utilize this, or?
Yeah, well, so I'll get you his email address, and you I'll have you connect with him.
Okay.
When I talked to him, he's still in the he's still figuring out the like the glitches and making sure everything works.
Sure.
Richard Grove brought me in and kind of like said, hey, you know, like this is perfect because he's still trying to figure this out, and you'd be a great person to kind of make sure everything works properly, and one of the first shows or whatnot. But yeah, anybody can contact him. He's really, you know, just a tech head who is really into, and he's actually, it was funny because I was talking to him today, and he was sending me links to another researcher who he's like, oh, you'll like him because he's a metalhead too, and whatnot, and because Matt's actually a metalhead,
Nice.
and now I end up being on a show with another metalhead. So it's funny, like you said, like it does seem like we're all attracted to these
Yeah.
things. I don't think it's coincidental,
No.
but yeah, you can contact him, and he, like, this service is crazy. I mean, this idea, like, that was exactly why I wasn't anywhere else, even though I was like, I'm bound to get kicked. The thing about my podcast is it is a podcast. I never monetize on YouTube. I didn't really care on YouTube. I'm like, I put that all my stuff is not for kids
Right.
and age restrictions. I do all that stuff. I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, hopefully, you know, it's a platform that I'm going to utilize because it's there and I'm not
Right.
kicked off yet. So I'll post on there. But the majority of people who listen to my show, you know, they
Yeah.
don't watch it. So, you know, just about everybody, you know, 99% of my fans or listeners are listening to the show. So I didn't care that much. But I think that is what's also helped me, is the fact that I've never monetized. I'm not on their radar. And because I'm like, okay, you know, like it's not for children. It's not, you know, open for anybody. I'm kind of got off the radar. I had Mickey Willis from the Plandemic documentary on.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I remember I talked to him for 3 hours. I remember uploading the video that morning. And I remember text messaging some of the guys, and I'm like, there's no way this isn't gonna get me off.
Yeah.
I'm like, I literally, the thumbnail is him with the logo of the Plandemic movie.
Right.
I you know, the name of I put Plandemic in the title of the show and all that stuff. And even though it's without a doubt shadow banned, because for some reason, like in that month, it was like my least watched video. I'm like, that's,
Yeah.
I mean, it's Mickey Willis. I'm like, it's the most like viral documentary
That's what I
film.
was about. Exactly. There's no way that that's the least performing video. No way in hell. And you know, that was like the you know, they choose things to prop up and destroy. So, you know, they use the pandemic as the ultimate debunk of just COVID conspiracy theories as a whole, right? No nuance, right? Surely something as complex as a pandemic or a case-demic or whatever you actually want to call it or consider it. It's like, surely something like that is not nuanced, right? Let's choose one documentary to represent all alternative ideas. And I even brought that up on the last time we were chatting, was you know, when we're talking about YouTube censorship and not be, you know, is UFOs as censored as this topic. And, you know, what I've discovered in my experience is that it's just alternative viewpoints as a whole, and they just pluck one out of the hat of an alternative viewpoint. Okay, we need something to talk shit about COVID and convince the public it's the mainstream, what we're telling them. There's a few here. Okay, Plandemic is the one, you know, and they just choose that, debunk it, whatever it is. Then people will forever affiliate that with, you know, COVID denial, or not even that far, but just calling it out for what it is. And yeah, no way in hell that didn't do as well. But I learned my lesson with the 2.0 YouTube channel. I haven't monetized it. I don't even use tags. I think a large part of like what kind of screwed me on my last channel was I'm not a Q guy, but you know, there's a lot of good research for the people that are more objective thinkers of that. I don't dislike Q or like the people that follow it, but I'm very cautious about, you know, that. I've not been one to follow like a guru or someone that knows all. It kind of sets your parameters, right? It gives you a limitation of what you're looking into. I'd rather free form it and find info than, you know, go off of drops that give me a few names to work with. And like I said, they do great work, whatever, but I put a lot of QAnon tags in there, even if the videos weren't about Q, because I want to make sure to now, whether it's an on purpose thing that Q did or it's an indirect byproduct, but it kind of really effectively split, you know, the movement in half, almost straight up 50-50, right? Where it's like those that believe in Q and those that don't, right? And now Q has taken over the Pedogate research, which I'm kind of butthurt about that, honestly, since being there from the original threads. Like I was there early when people found the food language in the emails. And then, you know, I was like, fuck that, you know, that's not good enough for me. But you build and you build and you're like, holy shit, there's something to this. And you get Q on the scene like a year later, and it's an umbrella for everything, the occults, the satanic ritual abuse, right? Because you have stories like you said, the Franklin scandal. By the way, only book I ever had to put down for a little bit. That was just truly, truly disturbing. It mentions elements of that, but many people don't see that beyond Q. It is now forever a Q product that he had invented. Pizzagate never existed on its own with its own provable merits. Satanic ritual abuse, which is risky, but there's repeating themes over years. I mean, even dating back to the ancients. I mean, with the sacrifice, everyone talks about that's mainstream. Just people don't believe that it's in the modern era. And mind you, it's very difficult to find proof of that. But then you have incidents like the Finders, or excuse me, Finders too, but the Franklin scandal, and that is something that, like I said, adds the foundation of, okay, that's what these people are talking about. I never even heard of that story. I think, honestly, it's better to discover them as separate elements because now it's under the QAnon umbrella. And not only did it divide people, but it served as the perfect takedown mechanism. And a lot of people still don't see that. And again, I'm not anti whatever, but these are my criticisms as someone that really, truly focuses on the Pedogate side of things and truly in my heart believe there's merit to it, at least to the basic allegations, right? There's some wacky stuff that goes on and people sometimes take it too far. And I'm not in agreement that you can't judge someone on symbols alone. You just can't make that jump. There's far more there, and it's just sad that now it is a QAnon thing. It's nothing else, right? We weren't talking about it before Q, and nobody realizes we handed them the label they've been trying to pin on us forever. They tried it with the alt-right to capture people with like these libertarian or counterculture, because now it's counterculture to be on any aspect of the spectrum of the right wing. I mean, I was an ultra lefty before this, and I still have beliefs that probably overlap with them, but they've been mobilized to hate me. I didn't want to believe it at first, but it's not on a level of reasoning. You know what I mean? It's an emotional thing, which they're exploiting on the left-hand side of things, and it's like someone, I don't know, I guess I'm not outright someone that would be perceived as a loony, but it's like the QAnon tag has been great because, hey, slap a label on them, alt-right didn't work, fake news, well, Trump co-opted that, shit, thought we had him on that one, QAnon, there we go, perfect, wow, he just came out of nowhere, and he includes everything, perfect, we'll use that. Put a gun in a guy's hand, QAnon, right, shoots mafioso or whatever that story was, oh, they're violent too? Bingo, time to run the news, about that. And finally, they shifted us into a domestic terrorism bracket. That's what they wanted. QAnon people are prone to domestic terrorism, at least in the eyes of like the FBI, as they've stated. It's very dangerous. So you can believe it and follow it. That's perfectly fine. But you can't deny that there's been some byproducts of the advent of Q that has been risky,
Well, the funny thing about the Q thing is, like you said, that is linked to the Pedogate thing, where now you can't talk about Pedogate without talking about Q and vice versa. And which, it's not even the same thing. I mean, a lot of us, when we're talking about Epstein or the Franklin scandal or the Finders or whatever, I mean, Q wasn't even a thing at the time yet, so it's, it's weird that it's linked. And in some way, like you said, there are some positives because some people who got caught up in the whole Q thing, like, it's motivated them to go down those rabbit holes and kind of research that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, without a doubt, I mean, before Q, this stuff already existed. And the thing about the Pizzagate thing, it's funny how if anybody brings it up to a average person, they're like, oh, that's been debunked. I'm like, well, what exactly has been debunked? Even on the Joe Rogan podcast, I remember when Alex Jones was on and they were going through the emails, and I think he was bringing it up because he was skeptical of it all or whatever. And then even when they were talking about it and they're going through the emails and you're like, yeah, that is kind of fucking weird. Like the hot dogs and the way they would use pizza and all that stuff. And then, the Instagram pictures, I think that's the most deniable evidence.
Yeah, that speaks on an emotional level. You'd think that would get people, right? If they're not using reason, as you said earlier, where some people, you can show them truth. and it still won't be good enough. You're still a conspiracy theorist. Well, why? You just acknowledged yourself that it's credible, right? So those pictures, a girl taped to a ping pong table, the art that they collect, right? And I like Mouthy Buddha's point on this. It's like at one point, it's not necessarily the artist's fault, although there is a level of like suspicion you could level against it. But that's precisely why they exploit that, is the subjective nature of it all. Oh, it's just art. You know, it's not me, right? Because then it's the equivalent of shitting on someone for their taste in music or their taste in movies, as we discussed earlier. Oh, that's just his taste in art. A little weird, but I literally have no basis of criticism aside from I disagree with your taste. Now, it actually speaks more to the collector than it does an artist that's creating it. And you'd think that would get people that on a visceral level, children being depicted in terrible situations. And for some reason, it still didn't do it. And I was there for the debunk and the narrative in live time. Like at the beginning of Pizzagate, there was two things going on before the discovery of Comet Ping Pong. We were looking deeply into Haiti. We were talking about Jeffrey Epstein, Little St. James being geographically quite close to that location. So Epstein was, and even before that, I mean, he's on the radar since obviously 2007, Sweetheart Deal. And as you said, these things have existed. The Finders Cult, the Franklin Scanner, years past, Fox Island. And so the average person doesn't know that. And now Pizzagate is the first thing we could get into the mainstream, right? And that would prompt them to look it up. But this is what happened from my memory is we discovered Comet. And I remember thinking, even though it's a gold mine of connections, right? Tony Podesta's birthday parties are there everywhere. You trace Alefantis, you get a bunch of people on his Instagram. His social circle is all up to similar debauchery and questionable things. So you see an entire group that's interested in these very dark and it all has the themes of children involved. And of course, it's not enough to say, you're a pedophile, 100%, that will stand in court. Well, of course not. All I'm trying to do is not convince you so much that these people are trafficking children. It's more about, isn't that weird? Don't you think that's weird? I mean, don't you think it's weird? Think about it for a moment. Would you ever be caught dead with someone with previous allegations of sexual assault, adult or child? Hell, I would be caught dead with that. And yet you have repeating occurrences of this. So don't you think that's weird? That's a better approach to me, where you can't deny, shut it down all you want, but then it's them closing their eyes. That can't be true. There's no proof. No. I understand a lot of what it is circumstantial. That's not what I'm saying. I'm asking you, do you agree with them being friends with repeated sexual abusers? Well, no, of course not. Okay. That's exactly what I just wanted you to tell me, because any reasonable person wouldn't be okay with that. So why do you think it's okay to not only like shit on people like me that are really passionate about this subject, and I haven't given it up. That's mostly my endeavor, is the Pedogate, Pizzagate phenomena. And, but they just, you give them an example and the questions aren't enough, apparently, that's the other thing. So we pigeonholed ourselves with the Comet Ping Pong thing. It was worthwhile because of the connections we got from it. But then that's what Pizzagate became. It didn't become the Haiti trafficking. It didn't include Laura Silsby connections with Hillary Clinton in the New Life Refuge scandal, where she abducted 33 children. It all became about James Alefantis and just the weird art, which is still very credible in my opinion. But what I wish would be brought up on a podcast like Rogan, the emails are weird, sure. But what's even weirder is that it gets weirder. It doesn't stop at the emails. You can say, well, it's just hot dogs. I admit it's a weird email, but that doesn't mean, you can even tell them, well, the cheese pizza terminology has existed for many years. And this is pretty close to that. It looks coded, but still you can't prove it. Why not talk about Alefantis's lawyer, Max Maccabee, being on the board of directors for the same orphanage Laura Silsby abducted the children from in Haiti? That's a bona fide fact. You can prove that. And no one brings that up. Even in the confines of talking about Comet, it's always the weird art and the emails. That's a banger. His lawyer is directly involved with an orphanage that was responsible, Silsby took children from. That's huge. And no one brings up these well-known facts that can blow blow it wide open. And that's always bothered me. So Comet Ping Pong, like I said, they prop something up like Plandemic. Perfect. We'll do Comet Ping Pong. We're going to say that they think there's a basement there, which had an element of truth because we were wondering, is there a basement there? Mind you, Alefantis is saying that there was a basement, and the media said there wasn't, but we set it up for them basically. And that's what sucks. And I get the same vibe with the QAnon thing. It's like as good as some of it might be, especially getting new people in, we're setting ourselves up here. And that's why every debunk across the board is like a copy paste of man walks in a Comet Ping Pong thinking Hillary Clinton was trafficking children there at that location specifically. And it's like, we never said that. Like it's more like a fusion center of people that are maybe doing that or up to no good abroad. It's not about that specific place. And that's why when the shooter went in there, everyone knew he wasn't one of us. Like, no one's holding kids there. And we never actually said that. I mean, sure, you might be skeptical and you wouldn't put it past anyone, but no, it's not realistic. None of us would say, oh my God, we got to go there to save. And it's like, it's far bigger than that. And that's when I knew it was, it was a whole setup, especially seeing the traffic cameras. I remember we were watching the traffic cameras a little while at Comet Ping Pong, seeing the people walking in and walking out because there's a traffic camera across the street. And we knew it was bad news when they moved it for the first time in years. I forget how long the camera was up. It was a long time. And it was facing a wall. And the next day, a shooter that clearly was not one of us walks in and just shoots the hard drive, nothing else. Let's just shoot the computer system where people allegedly broke into and found terrible things on a hidden page of their website that was being housed on that computer. It's like, you can see it working in live time. Sorry for the long rant here, but it gets to me. You know what I mean? There's so much more legitimacy. And Epstein wasn't even, to these people, Epstein wasn't real until, number one, the mainstream media gave them permission to believe it. And also, I hate Trump, and Trump was friends with Epstein. So naturally, I believe in Epstein now, right? Because if you take a picture next to an astronaut, it makes you an astronaut, apparently. And that level of logic, we were talking about Epstein in 2016. What do you think Pizzagate involved, guys? Come on, like, look into it. Kills me.
Well, the thing about Epstein is that it's like everybody's like, oh, Pizzagate's been debunked. But then Epstein becomes a household name. And what is he accused of? Child trafficking, basically the same shit that people in the Pedogate world were researching and trying to expose. So I'm like, now we're openly discussing a person who's linked to the elite everywhere, kind of like Seville in the UK. Yep. Same type of idea where this guy is linked to the elite that everybody must know, that these things are going on. It's same thing with like Weinstein. Like after he gets locked up, everybody's like, yeah, we kind of knew. I thought that if you murder somebody and I'm there and I witness it and I do nothing and I don't turn you on and I don't go to the police, I'm equally responsible.
Yeah, you might as well be a murderer at that point. I agree completely.
So all these fucking people who keep saying now, like, yeah, we kind of knew and didn't say it. There's a video interview with Tom Hanks. I think he's talking about Weinstein, where he's just like, he like kind of indirectly says like people in Hollywood kind of knew what was going on, and I'm just like, well, and you guys did nothing, because
nothing at all.
This is just the I had Matthew Valente on. I think his name was Matthew Valente. He was one of the producers. He was a Hollywood attorney and one of the producers of the documentary Open Secret.
Oh, right.
And and same thing in Hollywood. I mean, it's an open secret. Like, kind of everybody knew what was going on. Everybody knew these things were going on. Underage kids at these parties and whatnot. So it's just like, to me, it's like, well, there's enough evidence to prove that there's definitely some of this going on. Why is this idea of Comet Pizza, or the owner of the pizzeria, who's also linked to all these other powerful people and has politicians and powerful people eat there and hang out there, why does that seem hard to believe? Like, why is the line drawn there? It's like,
exactly
how much information comes out, because I'm like, listen, now that Epstein is a household name and literally it's like public knowledge that the elite, Bill Clinton was on his plane how many times and without Secret Service and all this stuff, and I'm like, there's all these elites linked to this guy. Like, there's no conspiracy theory that it should be too hard to believe. Like, if this is possible, a
Right.
guy who is, linked to pedophilia, to child trafficking, and hangs out with all these elite, from Bill Gates, who, he lied about, when he knew him and how
Yep.
well he knew him and all this stuff, to Bill Clinton, to, whoever. Like, if this is possible, like, why the fuck don't you believe the next thing I tell you?
Exactly.
Guys,
It kills me.
yeah.
It's insane because I never in my life would have ever imagined someone of the caliber of Jeffrey Epstein ever being brought to justice, and not even just being arrested, but becoming a mainstream news narrative that doesn't disappear. And then actually his last name becoming a verb, sort of like being Arkancided or like a Clinton kill list. He just got Epsteined. It's in the public. It embedded itself in the public consciousness, in culture. It was more than a meme. It was more than just long news coverage. It forever drilled itself into the brains of the public. Every normal person that knows me, because I live in a fairly small town, and I've gotten messages about Epstein specifically, and commenting on how I was talking about similar things back in 2016. So my point is like, it's one thing if you would, I'd be surprised if someone, just to use Alefantis as an example, if he got arrested, right? I would never expect that, but I'd expect it before someone like freaking Jeffrey Epstein, who, by the way, his partner, Ghislaine Maxwell, this is the route to verifiable fact. As I said earlier, how high of a building can I build on truth only? That's where you get into the tippy top. These people are so powerful that if you were to arrest them at an inopportune time, it would, like a small skirmish between countries and proxy forces would break out. Like, that's the level of like people, like we're talking former prime ministers of Israel, former presidents like Bill Clinton, people like Bill Gates. He's had Stephen Hawking on his island. But not only that, Ghislaine Maxwell's father comes from, well, he's a super spy. He was a double agent. He worked for Mossad. He had involvement with KGB. Provable fact. That is just on record. So even if nobody believed it, and now they're interested because Epstein's mainstream, those are allegations that are you'd consider absolutely crazy. Because notice, even with Comet Ping Pong, if we're talking about the shady art in the emails, that's even miniature compared to saying, oh yeah, well, our dad, these people are pedophiles, they're spies, they're running a blackmail operation, they have private islands, and submarines are involved, and they spoke at the United Nations. That's like light years further in reality than what we're talking about in this one little subsection. And it not only becomes proven, but it inserts itself into the public culture. And you mean to tell me, like you said, you're going to draw the line and say, but it's just art. It's like, these people are all connected. There's a reason they buy islands next to each other. There's a reason they have private planes and yachts, and they focus on the water so much. The water, it's very desolate out there, right? You make an island neighborhood, you all have yachts. I mean, Peter Nygaard, recent arrest too. He had the whole thing. Ancient Mayan themed island, private plane, yacht. Oprah, friends with Oprah, friends with Bush, Poppy Bush, the big guy, and all the people that have gone down. This is the way I word it, is they're never going to come out and say Pizzagate is real. What they're going to do is they have to rebrand it before they release it. Harvey Weinstein wasn't brought up in Pizzagate, but notice very similar themes there, just sexual degeneracy, right? But of course, he kept it to adults. I wouldn't doubt that his morals are already in the garbage. I would not doubt if it's not limited to adults. But it's like, these are all people that would be connected and that we have read about just from looking into the web of connections, starting with a small pizza place in DC, NXIVM sex cult. They look at that. You notice they name them like this is separate. John of God is separate than NXIVM. Epstein is separate than. It's like, no, they're not at all. The same people visiting John of God, who is a Brazilian sex trafficker and has just horrible allegations against him. Baby farms. We're talking non-paper orphanages, basically. Sell the children, but not on paper. It's not through official channels. Oprah is the one that made him famous. Well, the same people that fly on Epstein's plane, Naomi Campbell, for instance, she was with John of God. So this web of connections noticed the patterns that are on record. John of God gets arrested. Well, you could take Marina Abramovic, the girl that's spirit cooking with the blood and that gross stuff, friends with Alefantis. She was pictured with John of God. She did little healing rituals with him. Bill Clinton is rumored to have used John of God as a spiritual guide. Very interesting. And, after all, Oprah made him famous. Well, you better believe Oprah made sure to cover Peter Nygaard's Awesome Islands on her show, too. And like I said, guys, can I prove that these people are trafficking children? Well, no, but isn't it interesting what bad luck Oprah has to just be repeatedly surrounded by demons? Interesting, It's incredible. They just rebrand it. Pizzagate isn't real, but Epstein, NXIVM, John of God, Harvey Weinstein, yeah.
Well, even the Penn State thing. I mean,
Yes.
It was another one that was an interesting story, because I think it was a district attorney or somebody who was investigating it prior to becoming public knowledge, and they just had this mystery disappearance where they couldn't find him, and then they end up eventually finding his car with like the laptop there, but the laptop had its hard drive missing.
Right.
And all these I mean, you just look at the history of mysterious deaths. That's why the whole Seth Rich thing, like people are like, oh, I'm like, that seems that hard to believe. I'm like, really? I mean, look at Michael Hastings, you look at just Gary Webb. I mean, you get to go to the DC Madam, like just so many mysterious deaths where it's like, okay, how many of them are going to happen before you're like, okay, this isn't a coincidence anymore? It's
exactly.
Some people can't be fucking red pilled. It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's like there actually does get to a point, and I'll be damned if you can ever make them understand this, but they become the conspiracy theorists. To repeatedly deny something is true when it's right in front of their face. I mean, they're the ones that are doing mental hula hoops. They're doing full-fledged dances to try and find a way to make sure, nope, not in my reality, as if it's everything. You're the conspiracy theorist, and you don't even know it. So that's the Epstein stuff and everything you just brought up is, believe it or not, the path of least resistance. Just come to terms with it. I know it sucks, but it's out there, it's real, and nothing you can do. You can whine and moan about how we talk about it and maybe take things too far, if you want to argue, which some of us do. You get to crazy talk when you get into this sometimes, and you can't deny that the crux of it is true. I didn't ask it to be that way. Like I said, I used to laugh at this actively and make fun of people that would believe it. I laughed at my friend. He told me that. He's like, dude, I think pedophiles might have a lot to do with, the movements of the world. I think a lot are in power. I said, that's ridiculous. You know what I mean? And at the very least, I just went back to doing kick flips. I didn't even bother looking it up later. You know what I mean? And I hit him up as soon as I got acquainted. I said, dude, you might have been right. Like, I'm sorry, I apologize. Yeah, but it's just easier. It's there, man.
You ever see a documentary Tickled?
What was that?
You ever see a documentary Tickled?
No, I've heard of it though. I remember that popping up a little bit. I haven't seen it though.
Yeah, I remember. What the hell happened? I remember contacting the filmmaker, and then I think he was busy, and I never reconnected with him again. But it's an interesting documentary because it kind of goes into how there are these subgenres of fetishes and weird things that happen in the underground that the average person they're not even aware that it exists. And Tickled was kind of it wasn't really connected to any of the things we've discussed, but it's kind of its own thing where this documentary filmmaker runs into like this website or that it had like college kids being tickled in their underwear and whatnot, and it seemed kind of harmless at first, but the more he looked into it, the more he was getting harassed, and he was getting censored, and he was getting threatened and followed, and he finds out that there's this huge money-making scheme with all these weird adults who have this fetish of seeing teenagers, or in some cases even younger, being tickled. It's like some mild PG child porn thing. And these college kids were being would be given money and be like, hey, and college kids are perfect, or high school kids
Right.
are perfect because they're broke. So it's like, yeah, we'll give you some money. All you have to do is tickle each other in your underwear, and nobody will ever know about it, and it's just for personal use and all this stuff.
Right.
And eventually, if anybody talks about it, then they'll put out the video publicly and humiliate them.
That's interesting. So it's even got a little bit of a blackmail element too. That just really brought that full scope for me, because that is I completely forgot. Number one, I completely forgot about this documentary, but I have the trailer playing muted over here on the side just so I can see it. And I remember this trailer actually. And number one, watching it, I actually wouldn't have thought it gets to that point, what you had just mentioned. But that actually overlaps very well with the research I had been doing, where I began to notice that actually. And, I didn't think it was particularly new, but I also didn't see it brought up in circles of people that are looking into Epstein, like these bona fide examples. There's a very gray area in this sexual fetish abuse type of thing where I see it frequently. For instance, you can go back to, if you remember the big YouTube scandal where there was just a trove of terrible shit on YouTube. I was very deep into that. And
Alphagate? Was that?
It was Elsa. Yes, it was exactly around that time. It was like Elsagate was like more of a subsection of it, in my opinion, the way I perceive it, because what it really was little kids had access to cell phones and they know how to live stream. But what the pedophiles would do would this is where the challenges, YouTube challenges, come from. Pool challenge, handstand challenge. These became memes directed by pedophiles, because what happens when someone does a handstand is, well, you're upside down and your shirt comes up. Well, they would screenshot that. So the kids were accidentally producing the child pornography or whatever fetish satisfies. Hey, tickle, I have a fetish for tickling people. I'll pay you. Tickle each other. Well, it's not illegal. It's weird, but also, if you don't agree, I'm going to release the footage and you're going to be damned forever. So there's right off the bat some blackmail to it. And, that comes up in the Epstein thing. But even on these smaller levels, I've seen it. And the surface web, clear net, whatever you want to call it, is becoming increasingly worse with that. And I can testify to it. That's where I don't know if you ever heard of these different YouTube challenges from around the Elsagate time, but that's exactly what that was, where they'd create challenges that would put children into, or even, like, it doesn't matter the age really, because it's a kind of a fetish thing, split challenge, things like that. And that's why you see the timestamps in the YouTube comments, where people will click the timestamp, and that's the most revealing of the video. And I can prove this because that is precisely in my dark web research. The images and content created through the same means. Hey, tickle each other, right? Or do this, do a handstand. That circulates and is quite popular on the dark web. It's an entire subsection. I'm glad you brought this up, because it just came full focus for me, and I didn't realize that that's kind of it's an element of what I had been seeing and baffled by. I was like, these people are sneaky. They're indirectly, they're not creating it. They're not producing it. They're helping it along. Do a handstand for me. Well, I didn't force you to do that, and you don't even know, why I want you to do that. So it's very difficult to pin these guys to a wall, and it's getting bad, particularly on Instagram and things like that, TikTok.
Well, the thing is, remember that documentary Missing 411?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Oh, Mike from the OBDM show, he talks about it a lot. But I remember watching it when it came out and listening to interviews with the filmmaker and whatnot. And just having, these children just disappear out of nowhere, and how they didn't keep records at these national parks and whatnot of any of these missing children. So it's like, that's kind of weird, all this kind of weird. And the amount of people that would go missing every year was kind of weird. I always wondered if there was a link between, I mean, if you're looking to traffic children, I mean, great way of doing it. They disappear. There's no record of it. It's just sometimes it's in the the woods, so people will just assume it's an animal or something like that. So it's and there's all these things seem to be linked in some way, or have some type of connection. I mean, it's the same thing with the British girl who went missing in Portugal, which I knew about quite a bit, because I'm Portuguese, so like my parents always watching Portuguese news. It was a big deal or whatnot.
Sure.
Some people talk about the sketch of the person that they saw looking like Podesta slightly.
Oh yeah, Madeline McCain, right? Is this? Yeah, okay, I know exactly what you're talking about.
So anytime you hear these things, you're like, wait, I'm not gonna dismiss anything that that could or could not be Podesta, because there's so many things that seem completely too crazy to be real, and then you go down those rabbit holes and you're like, holy shit, there's enough smoke here to assume there's fire.
Yes, dude. And the funny thing about that is, number one, those police sketches, it's partly a trap, but just like you said, you can't, because it sounds crazy on its face. If you're going for optics, it's going to be a bad move, to like a bad hill to die on, to say Madeline McCain, John Podesta. It's clear. It's like, I guarantee it's probably true, honestly, but I can't adequately prove it. However, the interesting thing about the police sketch is apparently that's supposed to depict one person. So like the John and Tony Podesta that looks like them, it's very interesting that that's technically, if I recall correctly, you could fact check me on this, you guys watching out there. It's been a little bit, but I believe that was supposed to depict a singular suspect. But how interesting that it comes out very close to John Podesta, but most importantly, Tony Podesta, who has a distinct mole on his face. But the police sketch actually featured the mole on the wrong side, which would kind of be following the tune of eyewitness testimony. If you remember a mole, not so much on what side of the face, especially if, well, given the context of abduction, I mean, you're not exactly paying attention to people's birthmarks or whatever, but just interesting that it's like, draw the suspect, and it comes out as two extremely shady people, not for like white collar crime, not for anything else. Child sex crimes, just a fascination. Oh, that painting there, children bound up, children in a swamp, dead. That's my type of art. Like, go figure. And the most fascinating part of that thing here is, and again, I don't want to drive people to say I'm 100% a believer in this, but I like these this is what keeps driving me to do this, these funny little coincidences. The only emails missing from John Podesta's emails from WikiLeaks is the 1 week time frame of Madeline McCain disappearing. The only emails missing. You can fact check that, but they're all consistently from, chronologically, except a gap of 1 week. And interestingly, the whole Ghislaine Maxwell had a Reddit account thing. There's even more evidence that coincidences that you would believe. She grew up in Maxwell Hill Manor. That was her Reddit name, was Maxwell Hill. Her birthday adds up. Maxwell's, the Redditor says, I forget what they're talking about. It's something about like, I think it might have been about, what was it, the conjunction with Jupiter or whatever it was that just recently happened. They were saying, oh, the world's going to end when that happens. Just banter on Reddit. And she's like, too bad, but my birthday's after December 21st. So that really narrows it down. So this Maxwell Hill person on Reddit has a birthday that is later, is between December 22nd and the end of the month. Well, Ghislaine Maxwell's birthday is Christmas. It's December 25th. So that's interesting. And lastly, the only gap, this person was a power mod, by the way. They drove, Reddit, after all, is the front page of the internet. It influences things widely, right? A lot of memes come from there. It just drives things. The world's news front page is huge. And that's my point. And that's what she had full control over, not only as a moderator, but I think this person, because we don't know, they're the ones that racked up like the highest amount of karma, where that's how you upvote threads. You get more karma if you post something that gets upvoted. More upvotes, more visibility for those that don't browse Reddit. So this is no small feat. And we're talking about dozens of posts per day for years, save for 3 times the account stopped posting. One of those days was the day Ghislaine Maxwell's mother died. The second gap in posting was when Ghislaine Maxwell visited the Reddit party with the Reddit CEO. Now, going back to what you said, we all kind of knew Harvey was up to no good. And that's actually what the Reddit CEO said on Twitter, that she deleted that tweet for. She said, yeah, when Ghislaine Maxwell showed up, we're all kind of like, who invited her? Well, okay, so you knew that. You knew? She indirectly admitted, yeah, we all knew, but she deleted her tweet. And it's so funny that the gap in posting for number 2 is Elaine going to a Reddit CEO party that then follows up and says, oh yeah, everyone knew who invited her. It's such a mystery. And then finally, the third gap in posting of Maxwell Hill is the week Madeleine McCann went missing. Very odd, you know? So it's just like, I love these little coincidences. It just gets me going, man, where it's like, I don't know, life is more fun when there's mysteries involved, even if it's super dark stuff we're handling with. I don't want to live in a cut and dry world. But yeah, sorry to rant about that. I had to bring that up because I forgot about those police sketches, but I had to mention that side of it with the Reddit thing too. And oh yeah, and the last time they ever posted was Maxwell's arrest. They haven't posted since. Never posted again. Interesting, man.
I think that is what makes some of this stuff interesting and fun.
Yeah.
That when you uncover stuff, it is kind of exciting. Like it is like, holy shit, like my assumption is correct. Like there's all these links and you find out this and you find out that. And you know, when you find some like really unique discovery, you're like, holy shit, like this person's friends with this person or that person wasn't here when he was there. And it's just like you can kind of, you feel like a private investigator. You feel like, you know? Yeah.
And I think going back to how I started this, the crowdsourcing of the information and how I said I was still I was apathetic. If there really is an all-powerful group out there, they're not leaving anything for us to find. Well, that was me and a lot of people that are still uninitiated or write this off. Do never doubt, never underestimate the stupidity or the ability to simply mess up that a human being has. Never underestimate it. These people operate on such a cultural level. I mean, oftentimes they come from families that have not lived the normal life of a person for generations. They're completely insulated from the normal workings of society. It's the same reason, you know, just pulling one out of that hat here, that Pelosi thinks that $600 might be enough for people that have been absolutely destroyed and may never recover from what's going on right now. But $600 will do it. Well, I mean, that's not enough for rent for a lot of people. Like that's not enough, you know, just on paper, but in their world. And you can argue this is just semantics. You said the wrong thing, but I'm just going to prop that up as what I'm trying to illustrate here is the idea that these people are so disconnected that they may very well consider themselves separate, like almost a separate species. They have tastes that aren't like ours. And often this is where I think pedophilia does play a part. I truly believe the fetishes idea and these things that exist, there's shit out there that you've never heard of. There's people that really do just really enjoy people tickling each other, I guess, just name it, it's out there. And to think that like these people operate on a completely separate sideline society where pedophilia might be more normal to them than you would ever know. And it's not just about pedos, but it's just interesting when you view it from that perspective, as they may consider themselves separate. Forget exactly where I was going with that, but yeah, they're sidelining us in some way.
Remember that horror movie Hostel?
Yes.
So for people who haven't watched it, it was a horror movie with people being tortured, or I think they were going missing. Honestly, I don't remember how it went about. But basically, what was really intriguing about it was this idea of like people going missing and then being tortured, and then come to find out it was a business where they, you know, if you're a super rich, wealthy person, they can make any fetish you have come to light and make it reality. So if that means like below torching a little child's face, as crazy as that sounds, you know, that's what you could pay to do. And so that movie was always intriguing to me because it was always the way I've kind of thought of the rich and powerful, like this idea of like, okay, when you know, like you're saying, they're detached from our reality. Like $600 to them, it's like, it doesn't seem like they don't give a shit about $600 or any money to give to the average person because they've never had money issues. They've never been tight on money. They've never stressed about how am I going to pay my bills or I'm behind on bills or whatnot. So, you know, the average person, you and I, we've all had those anxiety attacks and those stresses in our lives. They don't. They're beyond that, where they've had every single thing they could think of material wise that could bring them some satisfaction. They've done it. So it doesn't bring them, you know, like to go back to metal, one of my favorite quotes growing up was "Satisfaction is the death of desire." It's an album by Hatebreed.
Yeah.
And that quote was always really important to me, because it's like it's like, yeah, man, like it seems simple, like a simple concept, but it is this dilemma we have where we are satisfied that desire's gone, but desire is what keeps us wanting something and what motivates us in many cases. So you think of somebody who's had every satisfaction, where they've lost desire for just about anything that would bring us some type of satisfaction.
Mhm.
They need to bring it to the next level. They need to
Yeah, they do.
up a notch. I need to go to, spinal tab 11. It's like, well,
Yep.
that, that might be something as crazy as, I mean, it's no different than like you meet some girl who likes hooking up in public places. Like, what is it? Like, it's that idea of doing something you shouldn't be doing is what turns them on, and
Pushing
it's,
boundaries. Yeah.
yeah,
Precisely.
with these people, it could be the same thing. It could be some childhood trauma. Chances are you come from a wealthy family, your parents weren't really around that often. They were too career oriented. They were too worried about themselves. They probably had their own trauma that they were dealing with that probably in some way affected you. And you could be this is something, it's funny. I brought this up a few times on the podcast. I actually brought up with Nick Bryan, I believe, and I didn't get the response. I think I brought it up with Whitney Webb too, because I think it's important to see things from all perspectives, and even if that means seeing things from the perspective of a monster that you dislike and hate, and I brought this up, and immediately I got like kind of pushback, like, no, I don't even want to see things from that perspective. Right. But this idea that like the victim eventually becomes the criminal in many ways, where this person who is an innocent person who never had a chance to mentally be not having some issues because they dealt with some trauma, maybe they were molested, maybe they went through some stuff, and then next thing you know, they become the monster, and they're the ones traumatizing people the same way they were traumatized. And so it is one of those things where it's almost like humanizing somebody that you hate and you see as a monster, and people have. But I remember, Dr. Christopher Ryan. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he wrote Sex at Dawn, and he also wrote the book Civilized to Death. Yeah, he's been on my podcast, and
Nice.
And he he's brought this up before, and to me, like, I know it seems like completely crazy for people to see things from these perspectives, but I find it interesting because, again, I never want to believe I have it all figured out, or there's not other perspectives I haven't explored. And he talked about on his show once this dilemma, this kind of dilemma of the things we're talking about now, about how there's actually people who have been touched as a child and wasn't traumatized by it, but because of them being told they should be traumatized by it, that is what caused them being traumatized.
Right. That's yeah.
It's so and again, and these are conversations that are hard to have. These are our perspectives that people want to immediately resist. And I'm not justifying any of it, but what I'm saying is, like, there is other shades of gray. Things aren't like black and white, and there are really, just other perspectives, other experiences that we have to consider. And even the idea, like I was saying, like, I remember talking to Nick Bryan about like some of these monsters that he's exposed, with the Franklin scandal or whatnot, like just entertaining the idea of these monsters where at some point, could we see them as victims to other monsters? And if it's this trend of just monsters creating more monsters, there's this case in Connecticut where these guys broke into a house. They end up, like, I think, raping the family, killing a family and whatnot, and then they end up like burning down the house or whatnot. And they did like the worst of worst things to this family, and then we tortured them, raped them, and then burned down the house. And first reaction, and just like anybody, like, your first reaction is, these fucking people are monsters. Like, these are the worst of the worst people. And then I don't know if I ran into a documentary or something about their lives, and they were raised in a super religious household, right? One story that kind of stuck with me that just made me realize the type of trauma that they were dealing with was that his parents told him that masturbating was like the devil's work, and it was the most evil thing, and sex is bad and all these things. Well, he ends up getting molested by a priest. So one day his mother walks into the bathroom and he's trying to cut off his own thing. Well, you can go.
Yeah, of course.
He's trying to cut it off, and his mom stops him, and he's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He's like, "I was touched there, and you said this was evil." Like, so think about the type of, so it's like, so your first reaction is always the most evil of people ever, lock them up, kill them, and then in a way you hate to do it because it goes against what you initially want to do, but you have some sense of sympathy, you know.
Right.
So I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I think
I know exactly where you're going with this, and I like to back you up on it because I've seen the same thing from people where they don't want to understand things from their perspective. And I didn't mean to just jump right in there, but I do feel very passionately about this because I want to put it in a different perspective for the viewers out there that are thinking we want to have sympathy for these people. It's not about having sympathy for these people. You do, if they're a victim, there was a time period that they were only a victim before they were a perpetrator. So I have sympathy for the younger version of these individuals that were victimized and put them down a path to continue a cycle of abuse. So when we talk about sympathy, I think that's what you're getting at. That's what I'm getting at for the people watching this right now, kind of wondering what it's about. But I want to bring up a few examples that perfectly backs this up. Number one, Allison Mack of the NXIVM child trafficking, sex trafficking cult. You know, average pretty girl, Smallville actress, very popular. As far as I know, pretty clean record before all of this. The last person you'd ever expect to do what she did. And for those that don't know what she did, because Allison Mack, she sort of served as the face of how Hollywood was involved in NXIVM. Meanwhile, you know, you have the entire cast of Battlestar Galactica being a part of it. You have the former president of Mexico. His son was involved. One of the people that were, well, I'm not going to I forget his name, but, you know, Richard Branson hosted them on his island. So, but Allison Mack served as the face of them. And it's because she's the most recognizable and it's so surprising. So it also helps kind of the media drive, oh my gosh, how surprising, Allison Mack. But here's the thing is, you know, Allison Mack wasn't just a member and brainwashed. She's a victim, but she actually was probably, from what we know, public records, she did heinous things. She took over the slave hierarchy system that I believe Nancy Salzman constructed originally early on in the NXIVM days. And viewers can fact check me. I forget if it was Salzman or one of the Bronfmans. I want to say it was Salzman. And Allison Mack, she was a superstar of NXIVM. Completely, I've heard nothing but good things from behind the scenes interviews of her. And, you know, especially in the context of NXIVM, her co-stars were floored. They said, I've never seen someone that was just so happy. You know, she wanted attention like anyone else, but she liked singing. She liked dancing. I've never seen her argue with anyone. So when this started to come out, it was very hard for me to wrap my mind around. Well, she gets caught up in, number one, a cult mindset, and there is a level of actual brainwashing that does occur. But to be driven to doing the branding, I mean, Allison Mack was involved in branding sex slaves with a hot iron. That is victim to perpetrator. Now, I have sympathy for her getting caught up in that. And many others have shared that thought, you know, where it's like, apparently she's changed and she realized that's what happens when you snap out of it, you know, especially because NXIVM really was more on the cult side of things, right? And but that featured blackmail as well. So these people are victims too. And, you know, it doesn't excuse necessarily the branding with a hot iron, but it humanizes them where they broke in a way. Something broke from that initial victimization of them. So anything past that is a gamble. Some people put themselves on the right track, others fall into it further. And I'd like to bring up an example as well. I believe it's funny you even bring this up because I was half asleep when I was listening to it, so I should be careful. But Milo, remember Milo? I believe I was listening to his piece with what's his name, Jordan Peterson, and I just put it on the background. And you know, he's the dude that initially kind of justified, because he had an encounter when he was very young, and he kind of justified it on, I don't know if it was Rogan's podcast, where, you know, and a lot of people looked at that as him underestimating the damage that had been done to him, this and that, but I believe he might have said something along the lines of like, I handled it well at the time. And it wasn't until like the blowback and all of this where I started to realize exactly like the implications of what I said. You know, so I don't know if exactly it was the after effects of everyone pounding on him that traumatized, but I think that was the vibe I was getting. Once again, viewers, double check that. It's the Jordan Peterson Milo interview. And by the way, I'm not like a huge fan of either. I just threw it on because I didn't know they did that. Plus, I want to see how Jordan Peterson was doing. I haven't seen him in a while. And yeah, I thought that was interesting. And my third point, dude, just to back this up, it's useful if you're a researcher, if you're into this, if you are someone that digs for the truth, doesn't matter how you do it. If you cannot manage to put yourselves in the shoes of some of these people, the things that we're trying to show you as being true or probable becomes more difficult. So if you can't put yourselves in the shoe of someone who has everything in the world monetarily, you won't understand the thirst for power, the thirst for the taboo. You cannot reconcile with the fact that people may very well do heinous acts in the context of a party with lobster tails and champagne, right? But this is a different world. You have to put yourselves in their shoes to understand. That's so far away from my experience, but someone will think abuse, it happens in basements, it happens in the far reaches of, you know, the corners, the hidden sides of, you know, people's personal lives, you know, because all we're given is stranger danger propaganda and, you know, the creepy uncle, when in reality, there's people out there like Harvey that are clinking glasses at the elites of the elites gatherings, where they may very well share an interest in these deranged predilections. But if you don't go so far as to envision yourself as someone that strikes gold and becomes all powerful, you know, you won't be able to acknowledge what we're trying to say, because that's what we see. It's very hard to believe that these people are that caliber. They're not abusing kids at these parties. That's where Bill Clinton is in attendance at that party. It's like, yeah, but think about that for just a moment. You're around people that have everything, and they're not going to be satisfied. They never are. If you reach the final rank in Call of Duty, right, and there's nothing else to unlock, you start trying to throw C4 on helicopters and do challenges and fun shit. Knives only this round. Like, I got to do more. No more ranking up. So I got to fill in the blank with something different, you know, and that's where it comes from. So yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it isn't about having sympathy for the evil of it. It's about understanding the motivations which therein shed light and help us spread this information as being a realistic part of reality.
Yeah, I think understanding, it's always been something I attempt to do with myself. I mean, it's my motivation to research things and go down certain rabbit holes, or just look into things I'm not too familiar with. It's constantly understanding. So why would I stop, you know, like you said, you know, why would I stop here, and why would I not attempt to understand where they're coming from, or the psychology of it, or the psychology of the trauma or whatnot? To me, it all helps us better understand what's going on and what we're researching, who these people are and what they're dealing with. You know, so I do like these tough discussions, because I think some people will stray away from, because they are taboo, or they can get some negative feedback, you know, because people they don't even want to entertain the idea of even wasting a moment to understand people that they think are monsters. And
Yeah.
but you know, it's no different than, like, I tell my wife, you know, it's like, when you disagree with somebody, having the conversation is always productive, even if you still agree to disagree, because I might be way over here, you might be way over there. At the end of that discussion, we might not be meeting in the middle, but we're a little closer, and we at least have a better understanding on why you feel a certain way, or why you think a certain way. So, and you're right, it was Milo on the Joe Rogan podcast that got him in trouble. It was something that he said in regards to that on there, then it kind of blew up. And similar to yourself, I also listen to a lot of discussions with people that I don't agree with 100% of the time, but I just like exploring people's ideas. And you know, I remember Stefan Molyneux, you know, he's another one who every once in a while I would entertain some of his work and listen to it. I disagree with him on a lot, but I like, you know, I still, if somebody has some type of ideas or intelligence that I respect, I can still disagree with you. You know, I not even say that I respect him, but just saying that, you know, he's he has some really interesting perspectives and things to say. And if I disagree with him 99% of the time, I think it was Rogan who said, like, even a dumb person can say something really smart sometimes, you know. And
Exactly.
So
and take that thing that he said, and don't put it through the filter of, oh, well, that's a dumb person or that's so and so. No. If he said something that vibes with you or has merit, that's all you need. If you don't like an album fully, but only tracks 5 and 6, well, you still like tracks 5 and 6, even though you kind of don't like the whole band. You know what I mean? It's the same idea. You got to be able to do that, and if you don't, I think there's a blind spot then that puts you at a disadvantage for those that are into the same things we are. You do have to be willing to acknowledge that. Yeah, there's a lot to learn about people that you can even actively dislike, but they have a good take on fill in the blank. And it's like you'd be worse off maybe if you didn't hear this person's take on whatever topic it is, even if you actively dislike them. The people that could say, I'll hand it to him this time, he nailed it right on the head about whatever the topic is. You got to be able to do that. I have a feel. I mean, you viewers out there would wish to have the same opportunity for people that dislike you, maybe in your beliefs, right? Wouldn't it be nice for someone to say, you know, I'll give that to you. You're right about that, right? So, you know, remember that we can fall not victim, but we can experience the bad feeling of that while, you know, contradicting ourselves and doing it to others. So you gotta make sure to be open. Sometimes you catch yourself, you're like, oh shit, that wasn't very open of me, was it?
yeah, absolutely. But I know I've taken up a bunch of your time.
Dude, this was great, man. No worries at all. This was a pleasure.
We've been talking for a while. Let listeners know where they can get a hold of you. I know we kind of briefly talked about you're on Odysee and LBRY now. You're on BitChute. You're still on YouTube at MemoryHold 2.0. Is that all the spots? Are you on Twitter, Parler, any other?
Yeah, so across the board, like the primary focuses, guys, if you are interested in my work, the main focus is BitChute and DLive. So BitChute is serving as my new HQ, so to speak. I am still on YouTube. So please, if you want to follow me there as well as BitChute, that would be a huge help to me. But I do have 2 strikes on my YouTube, so I don't know how long I'll be able to persist. I'm trying my best to stay reasonable, but they're still getting me. So BitChute, DLive for live streams. The live streams then go up on BitChute, and you know, Twitter, I'm there. I'm fairly active at MemoryHold, Parler under the same name, Gab as well under the same name. And I think that might cover it. I have some new videos coming out soon. Got a Nashville analysis breakdown video. And I believe I'm helping Mouthy Buddha out on a new Pedogate related video as well, which will be out late January and February. And that'll be on BitChute too. And appreciate the time, man. This was an awesome conversation. Refreshing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was awesome. I love these conversations. I tell the listeners all the time, like, it's not just a journey and experience for them; it's a journey and experience for myself. I always learn something and go. I come away from the conversation feeling like, oh, I grew a little bit as a person. You know.
Yep. I know the feeling.
Definitely check out float.app. You can live stream on there. So I know Mike from OBDM show live streams on YouTube and on Float at the same time. I don't know how he does it, but he's kind of our tech savvy friend who takes care of some of that stuff. But he does that, and their platform is awesome. I mean, you can buy and sell cryptocurrency.
Oh, that's sick.
You can do all types of really crazy shit on float.app, and they have an app, which is awesome. And you can also, I don't think you're on Facebook, right? Are you on Facebook?
No, I don't have a formal MemoryHold Facebook, just a personal one that I don't even use. I actually should get on there, just make a group or something.
Yeah. Well, they tell you how to download all your. There's a method, and I did it with my own personal Facebook page. There's a way of downloading literally every piece of information from your Facebook page, and then on Float. So you basically have the exact, you know, Facebook page that you've been using on Float.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
It also gives you basically like a archive, a cloud per se, of all your pictures, because people are always like, fuck, if I get kicked off Facebook, that's where 99% of my personal pictures and family stuff exists. Like, I'll just lose it all.
Yeah.
This actually gives you kind of like a backup where you can actually, you know, basically have it there. And the people who run it, Kim and Kingsley, or Aaron and Kingsley, are awesome people and just super nice and really just you know, when you get to know them, you really are motivated to kind of support what they're doing or whatnot. But
hell yeah,
definitely
I'm all over it. I'll get on Float. Hey, so viewers, yeah, follow me on Float. Probably a few minutes after this goes up. I need a couple minutes to register and everything. So it sounds awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And so thanks again, MemoryHold. We'll definitely stay in touch and keep up the great work.
Yeah, man. You too. Thanks for the invite once again. I'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah,
See you, dude.